And we're here. We're here doing this. It's gonna work. I think it's gonna work. Keep the faith.
Oh, you did it. Nice.
Yeah. Now we haven't got a wobbling
Yeah.
camera. Hello, Vlad.
Hi.
Hello.
Shall we?
Shall we do an interview?
Yeah.
Shall we? Well, I'll tell you what. I will do like a little introduction
All right.
because I'm just gonna sort of like I'm just making this up as I go along, essentially.
Okay.
But hello, people of the internet. Which I don't know which camera I'm going to look at. I'm going to look at all of them. Yeah, this is a very special edition of. Where am I looking? I don't know where I'm looking. I'm going to look at this one. Hello, people of the internet. This is a very special edition. I don't know if this is overviewed. I don't know if this is the Overview Music Podcast. I don't really know what this is
figure it
today.
out.
But this is a unique opportunity that I've been presented with, as someone very special has decided to appear miraculously in Brighton. Didn't tell me he was coming, didn't say anything, just gave me a message on the day. And yeah, a little bit overwhelming, but in a good way. And some of you may know the work that he has been doing recently. And that is a very special project called Together with Ukraine. That is an LP, charity LP, that I'm sure a lot of you would have seen. It featured 136 tracks, including some amazing producers like Noisia, Halogenics, Saber, Mikkel, Gyrofield. I mean, you could go forever. There were some fantastic Ukrainian acts in there as well. We had Nick B, Dubhead, Limewax. Was Nick B? Nick B
I
was in
actually didn't have Nick.
Oh, no.
So we got Worm Roller, Dubhead, Derek and Tonica, Limewax, and I didn't mention someone again. But we had you. It's a little like an Easter hunt. You need to go in and find the Ukrainians.
You need to go in and find the Ukrainian acts. I mean, as you can tell, it's an amazing project. Just incredible work, and has currently raised over £100,000 for the Ukrainian relief effort, which has to be just one of the most incredible charity projects that's ever happened in electronic music. And he's joining me today for a very special chat. We're going to go through, talk about the LP, talk about the situation in Ukraine. This one is going to probably get quite deep, as I wanted to bring someone with a real insider knowledge of what's going on. And yeah, welcome, Mr. Vlad.
It is a pleasure and it is an honor. It's good to be here, especially like given how impossible it was to get here. Because, like, well, I mean, probably most people know, but if you're a man from 18 to 60 in Ukraine, you cannot leave. And there are only so few ways that you can actually do that. And I was lucky to land in one of those categories, one of the rarer ones as well. But basically, I'm doing some work here. So in a way, serving as a cultural diplomat. So I was granted a permission to leave by the Ministry of Culture in Ukraine, because I'm involved in all kinds of fundraising things that stretch far beyond Together with Ukraine. Together with Ukraine was a lot more of a personal project, and also just the first thing that I did once the war started. But after that, I was basically involved in a lot more that came from my actual work with, not just me and a couple of friends involved, but hundreds of people doing all kinds of things, but it all stemming from, helping Ukraine. So yeah, I'm on a little tour throughout Europe and the UK. I'm here in Brighton for the Great Escape, and now for this.
I mean, this was the main reason, really, that you were...
For you? Oh yeah, absolutely.
For me.
There was no way. Maybe subconsciously I did want to bring this up the actual minute I'm in the UK, and probably I just didn't text you because I didn't know that I'll actually do it until last minute, and I was.
And look, you've got a lot on at the moment, so
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy and it's overwhelming, but it's good that I actually am in a position where I can be doing what I'm good at and help. And I guess it stems to the fact that it's a huge privilege that myself and other people in Ukraine who are not holding a rifle right now can actually do something, keep working, at least keep the economy going, spending money, doing normal human things. Go into a cafe, having a coffee, going to a grocery store, doing something, seeing your friends. That is all thanks to our military doing a competent job at the front lines, doing stuff that no one outside Ukraine could have probably imagined, that we will be, resisting the whole thing as good as we are doing right now, and that enables everyone to actually keep doing something they're good at instead of either hiding or fighting. So it's, I guess everyone owes it to themselves in Ukraine to do whatever they can to help, because we actually can do that, and I think it's worth a lot. Like for me, being here means a lot, and I'm happy that like I was able to do that very much officially. So it was recognized that the work that I'm doing is important enough to actually make me an exception and let me go out of the country. But by the 25th of May, I have to be back, because I mean, otherwise I'm in trouble.
We don't want
Basically.
that.
Yeah, I don't want to test that. No.
Where else are you going in Europe then? Or you've already been to Estonia, right?
I've been, yeah, so I got my permission to leave. I was supposed to leave earlier for a conference in London, a conference in Slovakia. I didn't get my UK visa first and foremost in time, but I also didn't even end up having my permission to leave. So I skipped those, and ever since like April 18th, I was sitting on my bags, ready to leave kind of at any moment, which makes you extremely stressed, because I'm a very kind of person that's like, I need to plan something, sit on it, like even like if I'm buying new tech or if I'm preparing a trip, I would lose myself in the whole process for like 2 days, do the whole plan, and then forget about it and live my life until that day comes. And here I was like, every day you're like, am I going today? Am I going tomorrow? It's very stressful in that way. I'm not used to that, but yeah. So Tallinn Music Week started on February 5th, on May 5th, and I got my permission to leave on May 3rd, and on May 4th, I already had to be on my way. So it was very much last minute. So until that very moment, I didn't know whether I'm actually going to make it out of Ukraine, whether I'll be here, all of that. But I mean, it did work out. So I've been to Estonia for a couple of days right now. I'm here in Brighton for the Great Escape Festival and Conference, and to have a catch up with you, which is a very special part of it. No, truly, I mean, seeing someone that you actually know right now matters a lot. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of my friends in person for a lot. I haven't seen my girlfriend in person for 2 months, because she's in the Netherlands. She basically fled there. I haven't seen my mom. I mean, apart from a few colleagues from work, I haven't seen that many people that I actually know in the last 2 months. So doing that here keeps you connected to reality, keeps you, reminds you of your normal life, because in many ways, it's been 2.5 months. It feels like just a never-ending nightmare in a way. You feel like you're stuck in an illusion in a way, because it disrupted the whole, flow of life to such a point that you cannot it's so like your whole existence is just different. Even though right now we're starting to do normal things and live a regular life, but the first few weeks have just been, it came as such a complete shock, especially in the beginning when you literally could not tell what's going to happen. So you had to navigate an endless space of possibilities. Is there going to be a nuclear strike at your house in 5 minutes? I don't know, maybe. Or anything that's in between that, and you had to feel prepared for everything. I was like, when the war started, I was at my mother's place with my brother, my girlfriend, my mother. It was.
Did you move there because obviously you could see everything that was about to happen? Because obviously they were
Funnily
warning
enough,
about it for a while.
No, the whole thing, like Ukraine, we were all downplaying the threat. We did not believe it's going to happen. We had a troop build-up in 2021, which resulted in nothing. So we were like, just chill. This is probably like an informational attack, because having those troops on our border has literally been killing our economy in terms of, stocks and investments. just by being that, they have already been having a very much direct impact on the country. So we thought that might be it. It's probably they're gonna just do that and then chill. It's, I mean, it feels so like, I mean, you can say I feel so stupid. I mean, but I can't, hold a grudge against myself for being so naive and having this wishful thinking. But because I think we all had that.
The whole world. I think that the whole world. I mean, there were maybe a few people that, because I know you said about there was a politician that was.
Yeah, there was a
saying
guy
about
in
it.
Ukraine who's advisor to the presidential office, a guy with the surname of Arestovich, who in 2019 called like the first few days of war, completely like got it all just straight on the amount of fronts, how it's gonna like all work, and everyone obviously looked at him like an absolute lunatic, while also probably having some very bad, weird agenda by saying all that. But he was right all along. So, but for many people, I mean, no one wanted to believe it. We in Ukraine definitely didn't want to believe it, to the point where, because as well, I mean, the news cycle was crazy. I know that in the UK, especially, it was, super intense, because I think because Boris fucked up with the Partygate and everything, so they needed something to shift the attention, because he was, I think, like just really holding on to his actual chair at the office. So that was also be like, we thought, oh, like UK is overplaying it for its own benefit, for Boris's benefit or whatever. And you come out on the streets and you're like, I don't see an invasion happening. Like, yeah, there are troops on the border, and that happened before. And even though we have actually been at war with Russia for 8 years, that has become such a, Ukraine is a huge country, so it became such a localized thing that you barely actually feel, unless you really want to concentrate on the fact and, for that to be part of your ideology. But in your regular life, that war barely impacted you, especially after the first few years. It just, became a thing. So it came as a shock. And you now look back to it and then you're like, holy shit, but all the red flags, they've been there. Not throughout the last 8 years when we were at literal war with Russia, but throughout 30 years of our independence, throughout, the whole history of Ukraine together with Russia for 300 years, comes as nothing new. And now that you look back to it all retrospectively, this war just seems like such a natural development of events.
Inevitable in a way.
Yeah. And no one wanted to believe it. We didn't want to believe it. We chose to ignore the red flags and deliberately did not connect the dots. Because, I think all of us, living in the 21st century, we're like, okay, it's the 21st century. It's very different. We don't fight world wars anymore. And sadly, there have been wars going on in the world for the last 20 years that I think the world has largely ignored because they seemed so distant to us. I definitely feel in a way ashamed of myself because I didn't pay enough attention to Syria and Afghanistan and all the other conflicts, because there is only so much you can bash into your head and care about. But now that I think of it, I'm like, those people went, I now know how it is. And
gives you a completely different perspective.
Yeah, you're like, holy shit. And like the whole world is helping us and has been absolutely incredible. But the amount of help those people have got is nothing in comparison. And it led to a very weird thing where, I think that's also been happening in DnB. So we, apart from together with Ukraine, we also did this gig with Hospital. And Hospital were actually the ones who, approached us with an idea like, let's promote an event together. Let's get DJs involved, because we heard from Studio 338 and they said, we are ready to give you the whole thing for free as long as, you keep us on board in terms of deciding what the charity is. So like basically we should know and we should agree to the general cause and the actual charity you're raising money for. And then we're going to give you the whole thing for free. And, they approached us and we were like, I mean, such a natural extension, especially now that the compilation went out and everyone was so mobilized behind the cause already. I mean, together with Ukraine became sort of a brand, even though we We don't actually have an official page apart from, you know, the Bandcamp page where you can buy the thing. I've been posting to my own Instagram, my last post on Instagram was in 2017.
Oh my god.
I had to break 5 years of silence to actually, but this was important enough to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in a way, I maybe regret that we actually didn't do that, because then people would have a more direct way of maybe commenting and engaging in a conversation. But I think many artists have been posting it, and I have been posting it on my pages, so there was a discussion. And what I've noticed is that, I mean, especially for the hospital event announcement, a lot of people were unhappy because sadly this situation where Ukraine has got such a disproportionate amount of help for some people is unacceptable. And I mean, I agree, it is a shame, and it feels weird to be a privileged, a privileged person that has to endure an actual war. Like, there is nothing really privileged about that. No one has to experience this, full stop. But I feel somewhat ashamed and pity towards people who actually care, for people who use that as to push their political agenda. Sadly, Russia has been very successful at weaponizing this, trend of, but what about an insert any other war? What about Iraq? What about what the US has done? Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's a conversation that we need to remember and we need to be having, but that's a completely separate thing, worthy of remembering. But like, you shouldn't help Ukraine less because people care about Ukraine more. And it is my hope that, I mean, in Ukraine, we don't say if we win, we say when we win. We are very sure, and we back it up with our own spirit, that we are ready to fight till the very end. I guess it's a part of Ukrainian national identity, but that part of it, for many people, me included, I was sleeping somewhere very deep. Like, if nothing attacks your very core, or like, you're fine and you're living your own life, and you don't have to go around saying we are strong and we'll defend ourselves against anything or anything like that. But as soon as you felt it being attacked, like someone actually hell bent on destroying your very existence as a Ukrainian, as someone who speaks the language, as someone who is a part of that culture that is ages old, in ways older than many European countries. I mean, Kievan Rus was, I think that was
go back.
Yeah, that's not literally, like, that's not even, it started before, the second decade. So it was sad to see that. I mean, then on SoundCloud uploads by many producers who uploaded their tunes from the compilations, you could see the Russian comments, and they were as sad as they usually were. Usually, because of the language barrier, many people didn't really know how it is. But many of the Russian comments underneath the SoundCloud uploads are like, "Oh, fuck away from politics! Like, why would you want to get involved?" Which is this very crazy defensive notion of saying that whatever is not okay for you is politics and thus need to be shunned and like just stop.
I've never ever got that whole notion of music and politics not being allowed to be together, because you look throughout contemporary music or so far back, you've always had
music was always political, for sure,
and even like songs to rouse people go very far back. It's always been very intertwined. So yeah, that doesn't.
And like, again, the definition of politics, like when we talk about discrimination, it is, sadly, it became a political thing. But like, if someone is hating on you because you are gay, or you are black, or you are of some nationality, or whatever other arbitrary fucking reason, I don't think that's politics. You can't say, when people dying in Ukraine, if someone wants to support them and express that support, that person is doing something inherently political. I think that's complete bullshit. But sadly, people use that argument not as an actual argument, but they have a very different agenda. But this argument might look from the side good enough where you would push your agenda. But yeah, you just say that very ingenuinely because I don't like this. Thus, it is politics. Thus, you are bad for dragging politics into music or whatever. I I'm trying to understand if DnB actually has a problem with that, because I think if you look at many, pages of the artists who do speak out on political or not political, as we've discussed, things, and people instantly jump in with their own opinion, especially if that opinion is different, that would be like, oh, fuck off, stop writing about politics because I'm gonna unsubscribe.
I think if you want my personal opinion, I think that there has been, and I've got to be somewhat careful. I think there has been a distinct like apathy towards politics for whether that's like a cultural thing for a lot in the West. I feel like a lot of people have switched off to wanting to even pay attention because there is a lot of bullshit in politics and it can get quite disenfranchising and I don't know, like people, the distractions that there are in the world and celebrity worshipping and all that kind of thing that, real serious stuff. And then I think that's probably partly what has allowed a lot to happen in the world that we've seen recently. We are getting very political right now. The rise of Donald Trump in America, the Brexit situation, the Conservative Party being in power, there has been a real lack of, I think, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of people that still care and there's still a lot of passion, but I don't know, maybe if the general population, I'm not sure if so many people are educated enough and aware and want to care enough. And that's maybe why then when they're confronted with it, they're confronted by people that they look up to or people that they respect or whatever. And when they start kind of like, because it breaks the bubble, it breaks the, because people can be very good at closing off from the world.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're confronted with it and they don't want to deal with that.
People might feel attacked over it. Absolutely. I think because whenever it's brought up, you feel like if you actually don't really want to care on it or engage with it, and someone says it's very important to engage, that in a way kind of sounds like you're being an asshole if you don't do that. So you try to shut that down because you want to feel good about yourself, which is it's all understandable. I mean, seeing how the treatment of Ukraine in this war by people was changing as the war was going on, the collective West had to wake up in a way. And I don't blame the people, because if you've been living in a peaceful, very much modern 21st century society where you haven't seen war for decades, or maybe since like the Second World War, it changes you. One of the reasons why I think some people actually have the energy to talk about racism, to talk about sexism, to talk about all of that, is because they actually live in conditions where they feel, safe enough living. They've secured a decent life where they can actually spend their time and mental resources on fighting for something bigger than them, that doesn't necessarily include them. Like, you don't have to be LGBTQ yourself to push for that if you care enough. Because you understand.
Like you're saying, have the time to care. I think maybe that's where like the modern world has become so demanding for being able to survive for a lot of people. Like, the discrepancy between the wealth gap and that throughout a lot of nations, and people, like you're saying, people are so worried about trying to put food on their table and support their children that to then get involved in a lot of this, this stuff, and have the time to even think about it. I guess, people just are more worried about themselves, and that's fair. That's a problem. That's a symptom of a society that they're saying is breaking down a bit, and isn't allowing people to be able to actually be able to deal with it because they just don't have the mental capacity or time to be able to. And again, maybe that's then a symptom of then what happens because, saying people don't have the time, so people take advantage of that. And
it has been weaponized in a way. I mean, going back to the global discussion, I think by what we've said for the last 5 to 10 minutes, we have already lost all the people who wouldn't want to engage with this anyway unless they are ready. So all the haters are out. So
maybe I'm sure they probably wouldn't. I'm sure if they probably hated on this, maybe they wouldn't have. Well, I don't know. It's that thing, isn't it? It's that thing about trying to empathize and relate and not close off people because it has been a problem, and that's I think that's that's kind of this conflict seems to be the kind of like almost like the bubble bursting of a build up of a lot of things that have been. I don't know if that's too broad, and that's quite a concept.
This has very deep consequences.
The division between so many people that we've as in a societal way that has happened. I've seen it hugely in this country. We're obviously not at the point of like civil war, but when you came to the UK, when the Brexit vote was happening and how polarized it was, even between families. And again, what has gone on, it seems to be a trend that's happening around the world and people taking to sides. And what happens when people take to sides? You get conflict.
And they get increasingly further and further from each other because it's easy to mobilize against something and also to be validated in believing something and seeing that people support that and fight with that side. So you're like, okay, this is like, let's have a fight over it and all of that. I remember...
Yeah. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember, how I experienced, Brexit in my social feed, say, because I've been listening to drum and bass ever since, I think, 2009, so I probably was 12 when that started.
Okay, yeah.
So I was, following all the producers. So, the main first half of my Facebook, Instagram feed is obviously drum and bass producers and other electronic producers that I've followed throughout the years. And then I got the job, which is my main job is I'm a programming director for the biggest music festival we have in Ukraine. So I very much also work...
Which is Atlas Festival, right?
Atlas Festival, yes. Very much work in the music industry. So the other big half of foreigners that I'm following and that I'm friends with on social media is people from the cultural music and music event industry, which are, two sides of the same thing. Those who are musicians and those are people who enable musicians to do what they do. And, the Brexit thing was coming up, the referendum was coming up, and it was easy to dismiss the whole thing because you see that everyone is so 100% sure that, disappointed that it even came to this point of asking the question, should we? But everyone in my feed was so sure that this is clearly such a bad idea that we don't even believe that it's gonna get close to that. So there was such unity over it, and then all European colleagues as well. So I felt like there is no way this is getting voted in, and then it happened, and I remember just this collective absolute crush and depression, and the air was heavy. Like it was just so unbelievable that it actually happened. Which is, discussing should decisions that have such wide, far-reaching, endless, consequences be accepted when the vote is 51-49? Like, I don't think so. To me, that is also a surprising part. Every country has its own laws about referendums, but I think if this is an era. This will change the country for 10, 20, 50, hundreds of years. Who knows how far the ball rolls. But then maybe you would expect that if we have to make such a collective, huge decision, maybe we should at least, have it 60-40 or something. That was a surprising bit to me.
Well, as in there should really be a clearer
Yeah.
to even allow something like that. Yeah, that's actually an interesting point.
Especially if you look like at the demographics of it, so you can clearly see that not all, but many of the people who voted for Brexit
older
were
generation.
they were older, and they were sadly heavily manipulated by this, crazy world where actually keeping up with the whole information flow is impossible.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. I've seen people very close to me be, were kind of, brainwashed, in a way, and really, that deeply, yeah, intoxicating kind of, rhetoric that was about,
Yeah.
and it can be very easy for people to buy into that because like you say, it makes people feel a part of something when there's all this kind of like bad stuff happening around and looking for an answer. I mean, I feel like if we were to go back today with hindsight and now with everything that's going on, I don't think that the vote would go through, to be honest with you.
That's probably the case with, many of such decisions. I mean, if we look at how it is in Ukraine, I now regret so many things. Like regret
Such
just
as
the general tolerance for Russian cultural expansion into Ukraine. It was everywhere. And, well, since 2014, once the war has started in the east and Crimea was taken, we obviously started having those conversations, as in, that's, maybe for people who don't really know the situation full well, this rhetoric that Russian is in any way discriminated against in Ukraine, I want to tell you that that is such complete bullshit on such an unbelievable level as well, because being in Ukraine, knowing how it actually is, the thing is, it was always the opposite. In many parts of Ukraine, Ukrainian was the language that was, in a way, discriminated against. People wouldn't want to speak it, especially if you are moving in from a rural area, and then the chances of you speaking Ukraine, if you are from central and more western Ukraine, are, almost 100%. And you will come into a city, and if that not like a super big part of your, ideology, or, and for most cases that's kids who just entered uni, so they don't really think in those terms unless their parents really like pushed it onto them, like the Ukrainian identity, how it is important that you speak your own language in your own country. You would come in, and by adapting, there is such a high chance that you will adapt talking in Russian. And the other myth is that the languages are very similar. It's not entirely true. Ukrainian, Polish, Czech, and many other languages between themselves are so much closer. If you look online, we have these huge tables of like all the languages, and the word milk is, well, no, milk is a bad example, but like any other random word would sound similar within those nations and maybe in the West, and then there would be the Russian word that's completely different. The thing is, most Ukrainians knew Russian because of USSR, and because we haven't done that good of a job of connecting with Europe and connecting with the West within our 10, 20 years of independency. So for us, going global was knowing Russian, because then you reach the Russian internet and the Russian cultural bubble. It opens up many doors. Obviously, knowing English opens up way many more doors. And I think that the imperialistic, well, I might be stupid for saying that, but I think that imperialistic vibe that English had in itself, because they, was an empire as well, and it did fuck up a lot of things in the world. I think it's lacking that. I think English in many ways actually did become just a tool for communication. It doesn't have those undertones that if someone speaks English, that's a result of something imperialistic being like played on them and stuff. With Russian, that was very much different, because then Russia would say, oh, there is the Russian speaking population in this country and it's being heavily discriminated against, which is always a lie. And they would go in with the troops to liberate them. And, in this war, the Russian-speaking regions and the most pro-Russian regions and the regions that are closest to Russia, so they are on the border, have suffered the most.
Which is
Again,
the crazy, yeah, that's the really
that's the
like,
it's
that's the,
very
yeah.
twisted, isn't it? Like the fact that, you know, by saying that they will protect, that's what it was in 2014. Oh, we have Donbass and we have Luhansk, and that was always Russia, and people are there are deeply Russian and they hate being in Ukraine and stuff like that. That was the rhetoric that was being used to try and legitimize it in the bigger world where people don't necessarily care that much. Like the people's perception of Ukrainian, Russian history, USSR, since it doesn't really, that's such far off countries for them. I think Eastern Europe in the West is very, you know, in many ways undiscovered, and a lot of people don't have a very good idea of what the history is, especially like if we go far deeper into like the Middle Ages and what came after and pre-USSR and then USSR period. People,
No, I think you're right. Like, I'm sure, you know, again, like maybe even like talking about like even people caring enough about even their, you know, a lot of what's gone in their own country, let alone
yeah,
what's gone in, you know, gone on in, you know, in places, you know, far reaching than that, and how it's all connected. I guess that's the kind of, you know, other thing that you can all trace it back, and so much is influenced by each other. And
geographically, historically, and in all kinds of ways. That's kind of also one of the reasons why, even though we've been at war with Russia for 8 years, that was never a conversation of, you know, how we have it now. The treatment of that was very different. We got some help. We barely got to a point where we got that help, and it didn't, you know, help us because those territories ended up being occupied. We have lost a third of regions of those territories, and it's been like that for 8 years. And you know, there has been a front where 12,000 people have died. You know, but that was in a way also good for us because it trained our army, so we were ready for this
took
thing.
it seriously. Like,
That's the crazy thing as well. If Russia wasn't as ambitious, they wouldn't have, you know, tried to conquer whole of Ukraine with having like a front that stretches thousands of kilometers, going for Kiev, going from the south, going from Belarus, from everywhere at once, because they actually expected that people, that's what's being said, that Putin was said, it was told to him that
he half thought that people were going to just let them
yeah,
roll through.
liberation. Everyone will
Right.
be happy. Everyone hated living in Ukraine and just was waiting when will Russia finally come
Massive
and take over.
underestimation.
That was based on such an, you know, an absolute bullshit lie, and it's crazy that because if they did use all those forces in the second phase of the war, which is again in the east now, but also in the south, if they used all those forces to just, you know, escalate that 8 year conflict in that region in a huge way, just, you know, have so much more troops join in, they would actually be successful at pushing the border in a very fast manner. The world wouldn't have reacted the same as well, because that would be an escalation of that war that many people and, you know, many countries didn't care about as much. But because of just how crazy their plan was to actually take over the whole country, that that made the world react in such a visceral manner as it did. And I think that's their, I mean, thanks God that's what happened. But it's just, yeah, I mean, it's Ukrainian success in this conflict at surviving, at resisting, at still being here, and now having the backing of, you know, the whole world, most of it at least, is thanks to, you know, our people being absolutely incredible and invoking into that, you know, historical, patriotic, strong feeling of loving your nation, of knowing how much the, you know, in history people tried to erase us, and we always persevered. Like, we have so many heroes in our history who in the worst of times kept doing absolutely incredible things, and if not for them, Ukraine and Ukrainian language would already not exist. So we owe it to them to be the same now, because we are now going through the same kind of thing. This is a very existential fight for us that's important to understand. Many people in the West are like, oh, we should actually ask Ukrainians if they want to keep fighting and they want to see people, more of their like people die. You know, maybe we should sit behind have a peace talk and do concessions and, you know, lose some of the territory but stop the fighting. Those are people who sadly have a very bad idea of, again, the region, the Ukrainian-Russian relationships, because that's just not what's going to happen if they take the slightest bit. You know, that's what happened. That was 2014. They took some. 8 years passed. They came in for the whole thing. Same here. Ukraine, sadly, we will be losing thousands of people, and that's inevitable. Even, you know, that there's so much territory of Ukraine that is mined that people will be dying randomly for decades, because no matter how that happens still, like in Germany, you know, very rarely, but still it's been, you know, 80 years and people can still occasionally die from something that was left back then. This is sadly going to be happening in Ukraine for decades without, even if like this war is done tomorrow, just again we will be seeing, you know, random people dying for nothing, which is, you know, horrifying. But that's the thing. And they're saying Zelensky is fighting till the last Ukrainian. No, that's what Ukrainians are doing. You know, him being such a good leader, I think only came from him realizing that and he was, you know, at the very first day, they said, like, do you want to flee? And like, which is not, I mean, obviously like a bad thing to do, because you leave your country without a leader on the ground. But then you can actually have a government in exile and be safe and try to do something. But he said no. And I think that's because he understood the expectation that wasn't of him, but was of a leader in Ukraine. People were ready to fight. People were ready to embrace a person that would be heroic, that would be an actual leader, that would lead those people who actually have something to really fight for their own existence, basically. And I think he felt that, you know, I can be that guy. Or otherwise, if I do flee, those people would just maybe not have enough motivation or force or just momentum at that very moment to do it all on their own. They needed someone to, you know, be there and just, you know, combine
lead from the front and
yeah, to have that united front, and someone needs to lead that. So obviously that has been incredible, and it's, you know, should be remembered that even though Zelensky was voted in at 72 or 74% of the vote, which is unprecedented for Ukraine,
right,
as soon as he got in, his ratings were consistently just dropping, and he was a very much hated president, especially because of his treatment of this situation with Russia. How have those tables turned is quite a thing. Like, no one did expect things to quite work out like they did with Zelensky. And no, props to him. I mean, it's interesting to see like how cultures, he is very much an actor and a comedian, and people would, you know, try to call him clown to make him seem.
I mean, I do have to admit that is something that I obviously have like learned, the fact that he kind of he actually played the president in a Ukrainian TV show.
That was not okay with me. That was for that. I actually hated him when he announced that he's running for presidency, because I mean,
was it a similar situation where you kind of didn't think that it was going to happen? You thought it was? Did people think that was a bit of a joke?
His presidential campaign has been incredibly successful because he did things different way. So he was very. That's the funny thing. So Zelensky being president, his presidential campaign and what he's doing now is very much interconnected. You can see like a silver lining there. But when he was president before the war, that was not the same guy that people were voting for, because he was doing those selfie videos that he now did all the time when he speaks to Ukrainians. He was doing it. He was like, tell me, what do you want to change in the country? He wasn't doing this high budget bullshit that no one believes. He would, like, you know, talk to a selfie camera because he's good at it. He's been an exceptionally successful comedian. I mean, his voice, I mean, since the 2006 or 7, that would be the voice that you will hear on TV couple times a week.
Right.
I mean, we all loved Zelensky because, and it was a quite lowbrow humor. This is not the best stuff around. But then what was crazy about it, and which goes to show the Ukrainian freedom of speech that very much exists, his thing, the evening show that he had, most of their jokes were made at excuse of Ukrainian and Russian politics. It was inherently a very political thing without making any statements, but just taking the complete piss out of politics.
Right,
to such a crazy point that I think in many countries in the West, they would be in huge trouble for that because they were going really deep with it. That's why people loved him as well, because it is very much a Ukrainian thing since the independence to hate the hell out of our politics and to shit on it. That's the pastime. We're never happy with whoever we elected, and we always felt like no matter who you choose, it's still gonna end up the same way in a way.
Yeah.
And that's why Zelensky was loved, but he was a comedian. And then he did The Servant of the People, the TV series where he is a teacher, I think, and because of a random rant that someone got on camera, he becomes president.
Right.
And after that, he actually went for presidency. I was not okay with that back then, because that was.
Is it where you like he's a TV star?
Yeah, that's I think, many let's say naive people, the TV crowd was so enamored with him, and then to just that's abusing it in a way. If you have got people's love and attention by taking a piss out of politics by being a comedian and saying, oh, I'm gonna use that leverage and popularity to actually propel myself in politics. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But it did work, absolutely. And he brought his finest, in being a good communicator and knowing how to behave himself with the people and on the stage. And that got him into a presidency. And then
I mean, there's obviously there's that kind of the adage of the court jester is allowed to hold truth to power in a way where you're allowed to say things that a lot of people were thinking
but are too afraid to say.
Yeah. You're allowed to say it because you're a comedian and like
which doesn't happen all that often these days, does it?
I mean,
unless you're on the ground and you're actually ready to own up to it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in the UK we do have quite...
Well, Boris used to like a proper laughing stock, so people are we're not scared of doing that. So I think maybe in the UK it's fine, or is it not?
I mean I think it is. I mean I think there is a point where we do have some interesting laws that are quite sort of like. And I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head the exact kind of like thing, but I know that there are certain things that you're not allowed to say, or certain people you're not allowed to talk about, like and that will be the case, and that can tend to be the royal family and things like that. Where that gets left over. But in general, I do think that we do, like the comedians and people.
Yeah, it's not like it's in Russia right now where you can not even.
You'll get locked up.
Like the whole competition in Russia, like what can I get arrested for, and people coming up with more bullshit cases where someone would hold an empty sign and would be taken into custody.
Right, so people were pushing it like in that kind of way, like trying to surrealist.
Holding blank signs, that was before this war, but that was a thing where people were holding thin air and they still got
arrested.
Yeah. Wow. Well, not they don't do anything with them, but they like get them off the street, take them to the car, and they release them. So they're not like killing them or putting them in jail, but But they do, like, as soon as you pop up at a public space, alone, with anything that even suggests a message, gone.
Wow.
And
I mean, I know that it is, there is a lot changing in the UK at the moment, where they are trying to take away there's been some changes recently where they...
Because of COVID,
No, because...
using COVID as an excuse.
I mean, that is the way, a lot of the world has changed where, there has been this kind of like, all these laws come in because of COVID, and now to like, because it's so easy to get there to then pull back, and and yeah, the right to protest, because people obviously taking to even more kind of not extreme lengths, but yeah, like some interesting lengths. Like obviously, there's been this whole kind of like gluing yourself to things or sitting in the road and certain forms of non-violent protest that obviously are frustrating
Into
people
the
and I think it's that thing where we do have a more right-wing leaning government that are not afraid to
crack down and
break stuff down and stop dissent and you look at that on the extreme of somewhere like Russia where you've got that that is where it could go in its most extreme. I'm not saying I'd like to think that it wouldn't go that far here in the UK, but
I think people right now on the background of this conflict are maybe inspired enough to stand their ground. So I think the time, that was the thing. And Russia was enabling a lot of the right-wing stuff all over the world. I mean, that was meddling in Brexit, in Trump's election. We now see, the French elections as well. To think that, that was a very close vote as well. Very much could have ended the other way. Hungary and
Austria, I think, as well.
Austria, Germany, all of that, and it's that's scary. But it also looks like the people finally start, because that was the same thing as in Ukraine. You have all these red flags, but if you put them together, connect the dots, and tell everyone, oh, like the whole world is just going to bits, and like, this is Russia, and these are people in like the right wing are actually inherently bad or something like that. People, that doesn't sound adequate enough for people to actually buy into it. But the sad thing that a lot of it actually has some truth to it. But I think right now, I guess just because how people saw that Russia, who was very much about the military might, have failed at this war. Like, there is, even despite any successes that they can still make, there is an opportunity for that. No one is saying that we have had an overwhelming victory and we're actually better off.
From finished.
Absolutely, and we are. It's hard to imagine how life in Ukraine will be like in a couple of months, because the economy is very much on its life support, and it's, in many ways, we are sadly completely dependent on the West to actually keep us alive while this is going on at a scope as it's happening right now. But the good thing is that we actually managed to, persuade the West that, it's worthy of caring about us.
Well, and I suppose it's that thing of like, obviously, not a lot, everyone thought for a while is like, didn't think that Ukraine was going to hold out as much as it did, and has very much inspired people and obviously turning the tide.
And I think that's a more global thing than just this conflict. I think like people are realizing that if you are, a more peaceful person, and that you don't try to persuade people using, might and power and intimidation, that you still, can hold your ground. I think, I really hope that this conflict will have such far-reaching consequences on the, the world order in general. I hope the world becomes a better place because of it. It's, not often do we get those chances. I think for Ukraine, we're gonna have, if everything goes well, can go all kinds of ways. If the tendency keeps the same as it is right now, as in we're sadly losing people, and it's a horrible, absolutely cruel and barbaric war, but we are holding our ground enough for this to eventually see an end to this that is not completely horrifyingly horrible, which does not enable those in the world who are ready to do things that way to see that they can actually get away with it. After that, after we've rebuilt, and it's scary to imagine how difficult that period will be, but it's good to know that, the world will help us and will support us to think, how life will be. But then eventually we will rebuild, and now we finally had a chance to pronounce our existence to the world. Now people know where Ukraine is. Now people know how Ukrainians are. There are some really cool people in Ukraine who are doing outright rather heroic things, and people, you know, are cheering those people on. So,
Well, I'm sitting with one right now.
I mean, it's
Come on, come on. You've
hard
got
to
to give
own up
yourself a
to
little
it,
bit of
but I
credit. I'm not
mean,
gonna,
yeah,
yeah, but
a lot to be proud of. But again, I think that like I would get nowhere if people on the other end. So yeah, finally going back to the actual. Maybe this is gonna be like a Patreon exclusive, just here two dudes rambling about politics. But I think some people would actually benefit from doing that maybe sometimes. But yeah, let's go back to the
when I look, I was,
campaign.
I say, look, I think it's really important to talk about these things, and for me personally to actually be sitting next to someone from Ukraine,
Who's been there?
that you were there, not only a number of days ago, right on the front line of it. You are, you're like you're saying, you're a cultural diplomat over here right now. I'm sure that probably somewhat feels like surreal in a way.
Yeah, being outside the country, I mean, it feels deeply weird. It's, you're still triggered by so many noises. Like, you do know that it's complete. You are in a safe place. There's not a Russian thing that's going to be flying in and dropping a rocket there. Even though at this point, like, it doesn't sound as completely bonkers as it used to, but still, I mean, my mind understands that I'm in a safe place, but yesterday that was a train in Brighton when I was going on, and I hear the noise and I don't could not quite tell what that was, and like
just something triggering.
my body reaction was very much instantly twitchy and being scared of that being something that's very not good for me. And your body reacts way faster than your brain does in that regard. It's a very much now a reflex, so that's yeah, I mean, that's a thing now.
That's a thing now.
Yeah.
Didn't see that one coming.
And it's, as well, I mean, I have to admit it, I'm basically just venting to you right now because in Ukraine, we are all so in tune with each other because we read the same news. You can no longer come up with something that was posted even like 3 minutes ago, come up to someone and say, oh, have you heard this thing? Yes, they did. We all did. We all know. You can't really vent to those people about your thoughts because they have the same ones. Like if you start talking about that, first of all, you already know how the whole conversation's gonna go. Your thoughts are probably very much similar on the more, very actual topics of how the war is going on. And you'll just both end up being more exhausted than you were at the start. And coming here, one half of me wants to try and, have a normal life, talk to people as if nothing has happened. The other half of me wants to sit everyone down and just vent to them for 12 hours because I have so much in my head now that I was not asking. I was not asking to become a military expert that now knows all kinds of weaponry because it's being supplied to Ukraine, and what are the effects of having that on the battleground against the Russian weapons and stuff. Like, I'm a deeply peaceful, conflict-averse person.
But it's been forced on you.
Yeah, exactly. Like that comes, and I mean, with many Ukrainians, some of us have an actual hatred towards Russians, and like, that's not people. Those people were not waiting for excuse to become hateful. That was as well very much forced onto them. And that is a very hard conversation with the people who are outside this conflict, that they're like, oh, like, calling all Russians bad is deeply Russophobic and, all those things. But what can you say to the people who's like, but if your daughter was raped and your brother was killed, is hating on people who brought that onto you, even by being silent, even by just being a part of that, paying taxes in a country they were unfortunately born in. Like Russians sadly are complicit, and many of them unwillingly so. You cannot remove that. And for some people, I've been in Ukraine for throughout this whole thing, but I haven't lost much myself. All my friends are alive, my family is okay, My belongings are fine,
Your
even
vinyl is
though
okay.
I haven't been to my place in Kiev since the beginning of the war because I was at my mother's place where we just went to visit her. That wasn't running from a war that's coming. We did, like me and my girlfriend, we did take our IDs. We took more cash than I would usually. I didn't take all the money, but I took a good chunk of my savings with me just in
You had a
case.
feeling it was like just to be safe.
A week before that, yeah, we were like, because especially people working for Western companies would be getting like relocation offers, like let us move you to Lviv if it's inside Ukraine, or let us move you to the west to us because they had the information that this is coming. I mean, if you look at many communications in December, a good half of the people who should have been trusted said this is gonna happen, any other day now. And
People still didn't want to believe.
yeah, I mean, would you want to believe that?
No, well, yeah, like you're saying,
It's,
would you want to? You wouldn't want to.
And as well, like, because that would instantly, result in a panic.
Where were you? Where were you then? Do you remember? Like, was there like a moment when was it like announced on like
How it all started.
national TV? I mean, did it sort of like?
So, the moment where you actually could, I think that was like a wake up call for many, is a couple of days before the war, Putin has announced that they are planning to recognize LNR and DNR, which are the breakaway states that they did in the East where the war has been, going on for 8 years.
Right.
And that you're like instantly, how Russia does this. Okay, we recognize them. They say, oh, we are so oppressed. And actually, in our constitution, it says that we own the whole region and not the actual part that we own. It's like, yeah, there are 2/3 of the territory that we actually own according to our constitution, but Ukrainians are there. So, Russia, can you help us restore justice in this world by coming in and helping us a bit? And you're like, okay, something's gonna go down. But even then, we were like, okay, they will probably like massively escalate the efforts on that front and finally have a legitimate excuse to say, oh, actually, Russian troops are there. They've been there for 8 years, trying to deny that.
Yeah.
That was the moment when you knew that something is actually going to happen. But again, no one would have expected a full-on invasion from all sides, apart from the western borders with European countries. So we came to my mother's place on, I think, Monday, and that announcement came either Monday or Tuesday. The war, I think, started on Thursday. We were supposed to go back home to Kiev on Friday. Like it's nothing. Yes, we took some extra clothes with us. We took some cash, took our IDs, but in a very precautionary way because there was already this panic and this has been discussed for so much. But then again, the day before the invasion, the night before the invasion, I had a call with my team at the festival, which was very much a call that, okay, guys, we need to update you on everything. We're obviously like not announcing the new headliner who we had booked, and we have been very silent in terms of communications because something is
not right.
Is going on. We were like, but we are pretty confident from our sources that nothing too bad is gonna happen. So we just need to wait it out. It's all gonna be fine. 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours from that, the war started. It started at night, about like 4 a.m.
Yeah, right.
Very much like World War II, because that is not only strategically useful because of the night and everything, but it's also, you're completely like, that's the most vulnerable time.
Everyone's asleep.
You're sleeping, you're deeply sleeping, and if I randomly like come into you and like wake you up, you would be like all twitchy and in a very vulnerable state where you need time to actually figure out what's going on. And it started that. So I think like someone woke up. 2 people have called my mother, not sure who. So 2 people called her at like 4:30.
Right.
Me and my girlfriend were sleeping in the room and no one did wake us up. So my mother would just assume that we already know when we woke up. We just, didn't see each other in the house yet. But then she did come in at like 5:30 or something saying, I think like quoting her, "It has begun." God. Was very clear what that it means. So in Ukrainian it was just one word, "Почалося." And I take my phone and I wake up, and that's like, you're very vulnerable. I'm standing in the room and my hand just goes like this. I'm holding the phone, but my hand is like that. And it's literally like falling out of my hand. I'm like, I just can't hold it enough. And I'm like, scrolling through the news channels I've subscribed to just because of this buildup. I don't necessarily am subscribed to any news anywhere, but I was already following some channels on Telegram, seeing the development of this whole thing. Yeah. And the first things you see is this just horrible face of Putin when he was announcing it. He really does look stupid, ugly, but menacing at the same time on that video where he announces the special military operation. I think that image of him on that video is probably going to be stuck with me for the rest of my life, because again, it was done at that hour and you're like just
almost in a semi, unconscious, subconscious.
Yeah, it's very much
almost
now
like you're in a dream.
Yeah,
really.
burned into my brain, sadly. And then you scroll through and you see, all the multiple launch rocket systems firing 20 rockets into the night. That, even if when you look at like wars in Syria, where you're like, okay, that's very distant and fine, and regrettably we didn't all care enough about it. Even when you look at that, you're like, that's horrifying, honestly. No matter how much Call of Duty you've played or how desensitized you are, seeing that thing go off, like just sending rockets that are gonna land somewhere, probably someone's gonna die from it or something will end up completely ruined. Seeing those videos was like, that was, yeah, I mean, can't really put it into words, can you? And I mean, it was my mother, my girlfriend, my brother, who is smaller than me, 3 months till he was 18, so he could actually go out of the country. Absolute blessing. So my father at the moment was working a contract job in Israel for a year, was supposed to come back on March. Obviously, he has stayed there.
Right.
So we could get my brother to, in a couple of weeks, to actually move out, but we need to make like documents and an actual visa so that he can reunite with father. But yeah, so my father was not there. So in a way, I had to assume the biggest responsibility. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like we've learned something about nuclear, what you do when the nuke goes off. What do you do when this? What do you do when that? What the hell do you do? And I for some reason like bestowed it upon myself, this complete responsibility over everyone in the house. And those were obviously the scariest days, because you don't know. You don't know what's gonna happen. This was that very moment when this all started, the world has actually changed. This is probably the biggest historic thing that happens, because again, now that the whole world is taking part in it in one way or another, everyone has to say something. Not doing something as well is now a statement. So, this is the biggest thing. And that moment you like realize that, and you just... Yeah, honestly, speechless.
The world has changed.
Half of you believe that there can be a nuke any moment, and you're like, Jesus Christ, we've been told so much, but like, what is it? What do I do? Like, lie on the floor, or do I need to actually like climb higher up? What was it? Which one was it? And yeah, the first couple hours of war, and the morning was starting, and I was like, okay, we need to find a bomb shelter. And my hometown is a very small place; it's less than 10,000 population, which, especially in the Ukrainian scope, that's very small.
Right.
It was actually supposed to be like downgraded back to a village or a town type village.
I was going to say a 10,000 capacity village.
Yeah. And obviously no one had an idea if we even have a bomb shelter. Supposed to, There was never a reason to actually check.
Has one been built now? I'm guessing.
It was that. It was there
Okay,
all
right.
along under the city administration building. Obviously,
Hadn't been used for years.
yeah, very much. I haven't seen that place though. So our people who came in to check that, yeah, it's there, but it's like they don't even let you in for the first couple of weeks of war because you need to be the siren has to be there for them to let you in. All that sort of meddling, and then yeah, I mean, someone calls my mother. She's a hairdresser, and she's like, obviously, like the social hub of the town is the hairdresser's place.
Yeah.
Someone calls her, and that out some woman, and she's like, maybe someone's too afraid of the war, and you now have a window for me to die. That was
Wow.
yeah, that happened. We were like, and we overheard the conversation on the phone. We were like, are you fucking serious right now? Like,
Does she have a space or not?
Yeah, she is a very busy hairdresser. You need
right.
to sign up like a week in advance. But a mother was like, for a couple of seconds, she was like, what do I fucking say? She's like, I'm probably not gonna be working today. That just shows you that even as the thing started, many people still could not just process the sheer scale of it, and that the panic that was ensuing was very much not there. That people didn't fear it before it started, as it feared. For some people, it took a couple of days for things to catch up. That they've advanced through many of those fronts. I mean, they were at Kiev.
Going straight. Yeah,
They were that. That was, that was going not too far from the part of Ukraine where I am, because, that place is not too far from the Belarusian border, but not that important strategically that the troops would necessarily be there. So it was always... It was, I mean, the first couple of days, you don't know shit. You didn't really think of how would a Russian invasion of Ukraine really look like, even though, again, we had that guy who really told it bit by bit, from where, how many, all of that. And that was the first day. And then for the first few days, I'm finally going to go back into something remotely relevant to what we started.
No, keep on.
The first few days, it was very much just stuck in your phone, all of us, like sitting in one room and just being like that.
Doom scrolling.
Yeah, 16 hours a day, literally. I would check my phone, and it has the screen on time and the average and stuff, and that would be like 10 to 16 hours a day. Didn't use the TV, just the phones. The internet has been pretty. It was that. It never went out completely,
right,
apart from a few short couple of hours in a couple of days. But thanks God it was there. We were all, especially on the first day, everyone was preparing to find those, old school ways of communicating. So there was this app that's called Briar, I think, which uses Bluetooth to communicate, and it also can send a message, as in it would try to catch Bluetooth all the way to the other end of the world by passing the message somehow all the way there. The whole
just in
thing
case.
just didn't work, but we all installed it, and we were like,
wow,
does it work for you, or does it work for me? Try to text me, stuff like that, because and
you got to prepare yourself.
It seemed like it would make the most sense that communications can actually go down every minute. So the first day there was this urgency that we need to know, read up on everything that's remotely relevant, and where the bomb shelter is, how do you communicate with people to let everyone know where and how you are, a lot of those things. You had to figure that out, because you're like, it's, a nuke is coming, the connection's going to be shut down any minute. The realm of possibilities is just, endless. And so the first couple of days have been like that. You're glued to your phone, you're scared for your life. I mean, you would hear the planes as well, and you would not necessarily know whether those are Russian or Ukrainian, and they're flying very low, so it's a lot louder.
Right, so they were actually flying around your area as well.
Yeah, Ukrainian and Russian, so that appeared in the end, that was actually Ukrainian planes patrolling. that
Right.
we've heard for a good couple of days, flying really low, so it's very loud, and you're like,
Right.
that would be, you would be like having a conversation like that, and then you start hearing something. No, it wouldn't like actually. No, no,
Right.
not
But
not
still,
not
just
that low.
but still.
Thanks God,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
then your mind would just, you would lose your mind in a couple of days. But you start hearing it coming, and like everyone shuts up. And then you keep on talking, trying to pretend that you are fine.
But,
So you all instantly shut up, listen to it through the whole way, and keep on talking as if nothing happened. But all of you are like, "Fuck me." But yeah, those in our area, those were the Ukrainian planes patrolling. So it wasn't a Russian one coming in to drop a bomb or anything.
But I guess, like you're saying, at that point, you're not you. Yeah, you don't know.
Back then, yeah,
and just
obviously
have
it's good
to
that
have
I've had a
military
friend who
planes flying
actually had
around.
like people from the military, so he would know a lot more stuff than you can actually read on the news. So he was acting as a kind of guy who would
Calm
say
down.
things that would actually like, yeah, make you a bit more relaxed as well. You're not sure, are they gonna take us all to the military? Are we all gonna be running with
Conscripted.
rifles tomorrow? That was obviously a scary thought. I haven't held a rifle in my life. I haven't, didn't shoot using anything. I wasn't in the army because of my health, and didn't even do a course at school. Don't remember how that turned out. But basically, yeah, had zero of that experience whatsoever.
I
Even
mean,
the
I'd
one
be
that most
exactly the
people
same.
would have. And then you're thinking, what if they fucking send me that? Me being absolutely, useless with a weapon. Like, what's that? That was obviously for all guys. That was an extremely scary thought. For those who have been fighting, they were ready for it, and they were like,
Now's our time.
yeah. Because, like, a lot of them used to be the veterans of this 8-year war, so they were already at home, but they were trained and knew full well what's going to happen. And then in the end, we also got men flooding back to Ukraine from all corners of the world. Ukrainian men who have moved or have been raised somewhere else, but
Wow.
hundreds of thousands of them as well, I think, and then foreign volunteers as well. I think like for people in the US probably who have been fighting the Afghan war and then at one moment realizing that wasn't the right thing and that they have been used to commit horrible things, and for them this was a chance at redemption of sorts. You're like, I should go there and help. That's what I've read for some people, that I want to go there and help to set the record straight, to actually fight for the right thing. So we, in the end, even though there was maritime law and on, so actually on the first day, if you were like fast enough, you could leave the country as a man because they didn't vote that in yet.
Right.
So those who have been close to the border or who were very panicky but still didn't leave, some people made it out of the country on the first day. Men, again, everyone else can, leave. Men can also leave if they have 3 children or have someone they are, looking for, and like, quite a few exceptions, but most have to stay. And then, yeah, but then we have completed that required mobilization really fast. So we had more than enough manpower to fight in this war. So right now, there is no huge demand for getting all that more people into the military. And like for someone like me, my, wartime status is during peaceful times, I don't have to serve in the army during wartime. And that's thinking that was always there, but you never even like think
That will
about
never
it. Like
happen.
that's there, but you're like, yeah, wartime. That's not happening. Even though again we were at war for 8 years, and it goes to show just how even in Ukraine, how mentally you were sort of avoiding it. Not everyone, I mean, and many people now regret for not caring. I started caring about it more maybe 3 years ago. Before that, I was also like a political amoeba who just didn't care and said some absolutely stupid things as well. He was
Right.
also speaking more Russian than he did Ukrainian, despite me actually thinking in Ukrainian. That's just how it was. Again, going back to how Russian is discriminated. I was thinking in Ukrainian, but speaking mostly in Russian to
Right.
most people I know.
Right.
A living, breathing example. I also studied linguistics in uni, so I would be like, the language person. So would be quite an expectation that I actually speak Ukrainian because I studied linguistics, but I spoke Russian more. So yeah,
That makes sense of why your English is so good then.
not actually, because that was my decision to go to do linguistics was because I was already very much into the language. I would say drum and bass in many ways is responsible for me having such good English because I was so into it that at some point, the Russian speaking internet is not enough because you understand that it's always already a second-hand source of information. Someone had to retell it or translate it, or, you don't have access to all the info. And for me, I was like, oh my God, this is like the passion of my whole life. Obsessed with it. And like, video games as well.
Okay.
So I had like a subconscious will to, cross that fence somehow. Like, I need to know English. It wasn't my direct aim. Oh, I want to study English till I know it like perfectly. For me, it was, I want to know everything about the things I love. And for that, I need English. So the first time I actually traveled to the UK was 2019. I've never been to the place because you need a visa, but obviously for me that was like a dream place because this is where drum and bass was born and is very much happening more than ever. So that's why the English part. But yeah, so my wartime status says that during the wartime I only partially conscripted, I think. So that means I would have to be, doing some logistical stuff, helping, dragging the boxes, doing something not on the front line.
Right. Yeah, do you know what? It's actually making me think now. Because I don't have any idea what my country's rules
readiness in terms of war.
Yeah,
is.
I mean, you're probably about to tell me, but I've got no idea.
Yeah, the UK is fine enough. Also, like, to probably many people have not seen that because that was a very domestic product. But I think maybe a week ago on Russian state TV, there was an episode where the anchor is like, was very angry at the UK for the support and sending so much weapons. And like, oh, you people at the UK are getting angry at us and trying to mess with us. And literally they did a motion graphic of their new Sarmat missile going into the UK and drowning and blowing the place up. Crazy people.
But then it's that kind of
But no, the UK army, I think, is in a very good place.
Yeah, no.
I mean, obviously, being on an island is not a good thing, but in terms of having enough people and having, absolutely.
But I don't know if like say say things because I think that's probably a fear for a lot of people.
Now, yeah.
Now that of like, how far does it escalate and that's people talking about World War III and that kind of.
I mean, if you like count in the fact that 21st century is very different, the world has moved on in many ways. This is probably how a new world war looks in those circumstances. Like, if people still want to pretend that this is a localized conflict in Eastern Europe, I beg to differ.
Yeah.
Again, I really hope that it will end in Ukraine and it wouldn't spill over anywhere. But it does spill over politically, economically. Ukraine used to be such an important... So the shortage of food is coming, maybe even a proper famine, because there were hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of people in African countries who have relied on Ukraine because we were exporters of, very cheap, grain, wheat, corn, sunflower oil. You can't even find that in the UK anymore. These shelves are actually empty. And, to think that Ukraine is all the way there and UK is here.
Yeah.
That is a very much direct thing. Again, that was just 2 months.
Let alone another year down the line. And,
Yeah.
and these things take time
So if
to have the
people
effect.
still think it doesn't really have to do anything with them, I think it's time to wake up to that notion. And I mean, we are unfortunately in a position where our people have to fight, and it's good that all the other measures, indirect measures, are being used to help us, and that the weapons are at least given to us, and then we have to use those weapons. So it's our people dying for the interests of the entire world as well. It's not like they don't have any interest in this war, because it's very much about them as well, even though that's like, again, going back to the Second World War, that was 6 years. It's been only 2 months.
Yeah, again, if you look at, again, comparing the timelines of, the rise of the Nazi Party, it took a lot of time before, the Poland invasion, obviously the different things that happened. Yeah, like you're saying, it's been 2 months, and obviously a lot has happened. No one can really. I mean, there probably are people out there, like you're saying about the person that predicted it right. There probably is some people out there that have got the right idea, but who do you choose?
I mean,
who do you
there
pick?
is, if you want to just follow how it's been so far, it already is looking that they are stalling their attack on the east. It will take them a couple of weeks, and then it's gonna grind to a screeching halt as well.
Right.
They are already moving a couple kilometers a day.
Back.
No, I mean, we are also doing some
yeah.
very good counterattacking, and we already hold some territory that was actually not ours since 2014.
Right.
So we even got into some
Wow,
places
wow.
where we haven't been before this major
Okay.
invasion has started. But on that front, they're still taking, at places 2, 3, 4 kilometers a day. Costs them a lot of lives. So even those are tactical, those are not strategical gains. They're losing way too much, so they don't really have all that much potential left. If this keeps being a conventional war, and for all the us being scared about nuclear, even after everything that has happened, nuclear is still a very far off thing, because of just, it's a taboo.
Well, look, let's,
It was a
you gotta hope
taboo
so, but
sadly, it was before it used to also be a taboo to even speak about it. We are speaking about it again, which is, a red flag.
I mean, I think that's probably the thing for, especially for someone in my generation. I was born in 1990.
Okay.
So, you had the fall of the USSR, 1989. I grew up in a time, and probably yourself as well, where we have grown up in this time where nuclear conflict and real war was the past.
Out of the picture completely. Yeah.
You weren't.
You had that barrier.
Yeah.
Of
My
different
parents,
times.
and probably your parents as well. Were taught in school about what to do in the case of a nuclear nuclear. yeah, what to do. And we weren't, and have like lived in this time of great kind of living in a peaceful time and prosperity, I guess, as well. Like, especially throughout, the 90s and the early 2000s, but obviously since, the big, 9/11 being
things have been
real
picking up.
changing point. But yeah, weren't, we lived in a relatively peaceful time, and that seemed like a distant past. But like you're saying, now you've got people on Russian state TV threatening what would happen, and people now having to comprehend that. And
I mean, that the fact that the whole conversation is even happening is already,
it's
a major defeat of the collective world in general. Like we really, even though nuclear, very much it didn't go anywhere. I mean, there was a nuclear disarmament, but US still has nukes. Russia still has a lot of nukes that were
UK
also
has loads,
taken from us as well for, promises of having peace and never being invaded. That coin didn't work out, which is also bad, because if we still did have nuclear...
because Ukraine did give up all of their arsenal,
the Budapest Memorandum. Yeah, and we had,
probably one of the few nations that even have given up all their nuclear arms. there's not one left. Like Ukraine doesn't have any.
Yeah, no nukes whatsoever. Not only nukes, but as well a lot of the the
Warheads,
higher
smaller
end
assets.
tag that's the most damage. That's already weapons of mass destruction, but not nukes yet.
Yeah.
A lot of that was given to Russia as well. Like some of the missiles that we are
Wow.
dying from
We'll
were
give 'em back.
given from us to Russia, which is
God.
just, you know, crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, okay. Eventually, we're finally gonna start talking about the compilation. And,
Well,
okay.
yeah, well, if anyone, if I hope, well, look, I hope I hope we haven't scared everyone off completely right now.
Yeah, I mean, we can, like, edit the. I don't know.
By the way, you did a compilation, right? You did a
Yeah,
compilation, right?
that was
you
this
did.
thing. Yeah, the
Well, I
compilation.
tell you what I wanted to actually do is I wanted to try and piece together like a bit of a timeline because obviously,
Yeah.
say go back to obviously say the initial time of
The initial shock of it.
You spoke about that and the next few days. I mean, between that, how long was it until the idea of the compilation came about?
If I remember correctly, so the war has started on the 24th. I think that was one of the sleepless nights.
Right.
So, because again, we were sleeping with an open window, so every noise that was coming, you were like, oh, that's a rocket coming. Just roll over the bed and drop on the floor. Not like that's going to achieve anything, but, I was like waking up to every noise. Like, it's not like I was sleeping really well anyway, so I was barely sleeping. And, so every little thing I would hear and instantly, perk up. And I felt horribly the first few days because I had like obscenely high blood pressure because of all the stress. So it just felt like my head was literally imploding.
Right.
Felt horrible, especially because you don't really go out on the street. You stay at your place. You're stressed the hell
Looking at the
out.
news.
You're in your phone for 16 hours a day, literally just sitting or lying on the bed and staring at a screen and sleeping a bit. That was it, basically. Went in to buy as much food as we could, all that kind of jazz. And then there was probably the night from 26th to 27th, maybe the next one. One of the
So
two.
it was only a couple of days after.
Yeah,
then.
just a couple, not even a week. Definitely
right,
not even a
okay.
week. So 3 to 4 days, basically. And that's kind of the thing, like a lot, whenever I have like a sort of an ambition to do something. So for me, that was always like to do my own DnB gigs in Ukraine. I wanted to make a local one, and then I got the job that I have. So by the point I returned to the idea was I can actually, like, financially and in general, knowing everything now, can pull off actually having like a guest. So I was supposed to, just before COVID, I have announced a gig with Halogenics, which for me, I haven't slept probably dozens of nights from back when I was 18, dreaming this whole thing up. But
Right.
there was always something that was like my first DJ set. I was like imagining and dreaming about it before it actually happened for a couple of years. And this local gig, the funny thing was I wanted to make it on my birthday at a venue that we own in Kiev. So there is like a main venue and a bar. I wanted to make it in a bar, so a really small one, just to like celebrate, but also like to play myself and like invite other folks of mine. And on that very date, there was a secret operations gig announced for the main venue. So Seba and Paradox and
Right.
Manus were coming.
Okay.
I was like, fuck's sake. I mean, that's amazing. I'm going to go to that and enjoy it. But here's my plans dying again. And that was the halogenics gig. And I was like, okay, finally doing it. I can finally sleep well once I'm done with this. Probably not, because I would want to do more of those. But I have a lot of sleepless night when I didn't process something. And there is something in the edge of my mind that, like, as soon as I hit the bed, I'm like, okay, time to think about it for 4 hours and not sleep. This was very much one of those nights. I just couldn't sleep because of, all the context I've given you. But I was like, Wait, so we had the Booze release, the compilation DnB for Peace, the one for he did for Palestine.
Yeah.
So Boo did that. Save Fabric, 100 something tunes, absolutely huge compilation. Not necessarily DnB, but with a lot of DnB guys involved. We had your release, and we had a not that big of a but still a good one that I remember was the one for Aleppo as well. Remember that was this foreign concept tune, a VAP of his tune with Ria that I absolutely love. So I remember that compilation vividly. I was like, I I can this needs to happen for Ukraine first and foremost. And I was like, I think I can pull it off. Like it's because I already saw the overwhelming amount of support, and I was like, I think the community wants that to happen. It's just that, and I think already many releases have been brewing up, not only in drum and bass, but in other electronic genres. But a label would drop 2-3 tunes of their artists who wanted to support. So when Bandcamp Friday came, it was like, I think that was March 4th or something, or March 5th, one of the two. Uh, Many smaller releases have dropped, so it's not like I was the only one who had the idea. But I was like, okay, so Boo did a lot, and like Fabric did a lot. I think we can like make a proper one. I didn't have an idea of how big it will be. I was like, I just want there to appear a release that will be raising money for Ukraine. That's it. No idea how big it's going to be. Not even the release date until I think it was Badger who mentioned that, oh, guys, actually, Bandcamp Friday is coming. And we were like, holy shit. Yeah, that
Right.
was literally, in 6 days since I got the ideas. So when we were already talking to Badger, he mentioned that. We were like, okay, we need to like hurry the fuck up because those 15%, that's a couple of lives saved. You can't miss
No
out on
times
that.
away.
So I have this friend of mine, Riz Bainham, who used to be a promoter at Weird Science here at the UK, so responsible for Made Festival, for most of the DnB, and not only DnB, but in general UK electronic music gigs in Brum, but a lot in London as well, was involved with XOYO. So yeah, I mean, a guy who's very much deeply in touch with the whole scene here, knew everyone. Um, and
And he's living. He obviously lives in Ukraine now.
yes, so how it all happened is that in July 2019, after our festival happened, Calibra had his residency in XOYO. And for me, Kaliba is my single, favorite artist, period. Not just in DnB, the collective whole of him, not only his music, but like his entire attitude and everything that he represents. My absolute favorite artist. So it's like, and I had a UK visa, my first one, for 6 months
Right.
because of the job. I was like,
I've got to go.
I cannot allow myself to miss this one.
Yeah.
I dreamt about seeing him, even though he's not maybe the most exciting DJ, but the fact that it is
his own
he
music.
who is playing means the whole world. Usually I wouldn't like care as much about that, but he's an absolute fanboy here. Like Jesus Christ. I mean, I have like this many records on my shelf from college. It's 20 something probably at this point. So I came to that. I was also lucky enough because I got to know Josh from Modestab because I booked him in Ukraine for an amazing free open air gig. And his girlfriend is actually, she grew up in Poland, but she had Ukrainian roots, but she's never been to Ukraine. So they were always looking for an excuse to come to Ukraine. And I very much gave that to them. And the agent, Paul, told me that,
would be very grateful for that.
yeah, and they came in and we had like the best time ever. They've only been there for 24 hours. So like the second they came, they already had plans, and I was like, yeah, all right. And I still like, Modestep used to be very much about DnB back in the day as well. So I was like, we'll probably connect. And we connected, big time. So they actually said, like, we have a place in the UK, we have moved to LA now, but like if you ever need a place to stay, like come to our place. So when Caliber residency picked up, I was like actually messaged them, not really expecting, like, because we did have a good time, but they probably meet a lot of great people along the way, and but then it did feel very special. So they're like, oh no, we're actually like touring Europe right now, so we're like gonna come to the UK and you can stay at our place and we're gonna be hanging out with you. One of the happiest weeks of my life. They are incredible people, and I went to the residency and it was all amazing. So during that time, Made was happening, and I was looking for, like, I'm in the UK for a week. Where should I go? Obviously the Caliber gig, but then what else? And we saw Made happening in Birmingham.
Right. Yeah.
And Josh's girlfriend spent, was studying in Brum, so for her it's like her place. So they're like, okay, like let's get you onto the guest list and let's go. Josh was writing, had to finish some remix that day, so me and Ola came to Brum to go to Maid. And the weather was absolute, oh my god, like
Bad.
oh, it was horrible.
Oh, no. That's a good old British festival right
Well,
there.
yeah, I properly experienced that, and that was
Lots of mud.
yeah, way too much. Was not ready for that. I had to leave early as well. But basically, when we were asking for guest list, Riz showed up in the email, and he was like, because someone told me I'm from Ukraine. He's like, oh, like, sick, like, let's meet, because like I love Ukraine, so it'd be a pleasure to get to know you. So he was like, let's meet up, and I was like, I mean, yeah, absolutely, by all means. Didn't quite happen because he was obviously extremely busy during the festival. There was also no service. I couldn't like jump on the internet and actually connect to him, so I left before I ever saw him. But he was like, hey, like, let's
Still stay in touch.
I'll come to Ukraine eventually, and I want to meet you still. And I was like,
Okay.
and eventually he did in a couple of months, and he was like, hey, like I'm in Ukraine, like let's catch up. And so we did. And for me, as for like I would consider myself to be the most like person that's just, way too much into drum and bass. Probably the person that has committed the most of their like mind and soul to the genre, even though there were people who were actually doing like gigs and stuff. I think like engaging with the community. I knew you for years, for example, when we were like tracking down piracy and leaked releases and stuff. Some of the best things I have in my life I owe to my love and interest for drum and bass. Most of the people I've met, some of my dearest friends, some of my best experiences going to Latitrol in the time where we still needed to get visas to go to Europe. That meant, going to Latitrol in 2015 was for me one of the most unbelievable things to happen in my life, because I didn't even think that you can actually, if you wanted to, you can like from Ukraine just go out and travel and go to a festival of your dreams, which back then Latitrol was definitely that for me. So, so it was very easy for me to talk to him, because he was, a person from the UK who's in touch and knows everything and everyone. And here I am, a weird guy from Ukraine who speaks very decent English and, loves drum and bass to bits. We're like instantly connected. And he came over a couple more times to Ukraine. The thing is, where he was studying in uni, he had a Russian-Ukrainian speaking, company of friends. So eventually he visited Ukraine, and he was like, that's a sick place. So he just, kept going. Everyone would go there and there, but he was like, no, Ukraine is my place where I go when I'm on a vacation.
Really?
Yeah. So, a very random thing, but he was into going to Ukraine whenever he had the chance, because he had many friends from there and he loved the place. And we, whenever he came to Ukraine, like we would hang out, and, we would really just become really, despite not, being in touch all that much, really like connected on a very personal level. He's genuinely an amazing person. And, eventually he was like, I want to move to Ukraine.
Really?
He came, to the idea of like, he can retain his job still. So he was like, I mean, I can still do all of the promoting on my laptop. And then obviously for Made, I would easily just go back, do the thing, and then return. The thing is, I mean, if you move in from the UK to Ukraine and you retain your UK salary, the level of life that you can allow yourself to have in Ukraine is basically at least 2-3 times better than what you can do for the same money in the UK.
Yeah.
So if you love the place and you can take your salary there, you're gonna have an incredible time, because in the UK he was renting out a place and paying a lot for it, and it was a nice place. I stayed there once, but for the same money in Ukraine you can get like one of the finest Airbnbs around and just
Live like a king.
basically
Yeah.
in a way, yeah. So he was like, yeah, that's a very easy decision to make. I retain my salary.
Smart man.
I love this country, and I would be able to have, a better life than I could have afforded in the UK. So he made the decision, and we've been amazing friends ever since, and all of that. And he was helping me a lot with, me trying to, start promoting and with bookings at the festival and stuff like that. And so, I had a person who is very deeply like in touch with everyone and knows everyone here. So that night during the war, I was, I'll just hit up Riz, and I think we can get this project off the ground rather easily. Like, he would easily get a lot of people involved, and I would be able to be the person that's actually from Ukraine and oversees the whole thing. And I know other people, or I would, I head up you personally. So I would head up you, someone else, and, collectively we can definitely cast a wide net. I woke up, gave him a call, and was like, let's do this. And he was like, holy shit, like that is an amazing idea that I should have thought
Why
of
didn't
myself.
I think of that?
And we basically got to work. So he messaged Hospital, he messaged Metalheads, he messaged Shogun, personally messaged Halogenics. I think those are the biggest starting points. And then I messaged you. So it was in the beginning, it was just me and Riz, and we and he was, because he knows, the guys at Warship, so he's in touch with Subfocus Dimension, obviously mentioned Seb, Skankin Base, trying to get people involved and hopefully land at least one huge name to do the whole thing because as soon as we can tell everyone else that we have this guy already, brings weight to it. Didn't decide, and Critical, obviously, Message Critical as well, so Badger and Gas. That was the starting point. At that point, we had no real plan on idea of what we were trying to achieve here. Didn't have a release date. I was like, okay, I want this to go to the Ukrainian Red Cross Society, which is important to know. This is not the same as the International Red Cross mission in Ukraine. So that is a Ukrainian, department of the Red Cross, and Ukrainian Red Cross Society is a independent offshoot.
Okay.
Because, later we would discover how inept Red Cross actually ended up being in the whole conflict. And I was worried, but I looked more into it, and I was like, okay, the guys we are donating to are actually doing something competent and are helping on the ground right now. So I was very relieved when I was checked on that, and I messaged everyone who bought the release to tell about it. And I've decided we want to donate here. I instantly also messaged Uno, who's the designer, who did a lot of stuff for Exit, Critical, basically, in the beginning especially, did almost everything for Divided, but then they started sharing, I think, with Museum or someone else as well. So he was very in touch with, with Imanu and everyone from that Netherlands camp, and, with Jarofeld and everyone else. So I was like, would you be up to design an artwork for that? And he was like, yeah, absolutely, of course. And I'm like, can you reach out to Imanu and everyone from that camp, Divided, Discord, all of those? And he did that, and that ended up very instantly becoming one of the first bigger camps of artists we were working with. Basically, Uno gave my number, I think, to Imanu, and Imanu just made a WhatsApp group with,
so many people.
Jarafield, Late Sleeper, Bunshin, and a lot of the people who ended up on the compilation as well from their close circle of friends. that was one of the first good developments. Hospital were like, we are fully on board with this.
I was going to say, do you know what was the first actual song that you remember getting in? I'm going to really test your knowledge right now. I know there was 100 and,
No, oh,
130.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, yeah, sorry if that's a bit of a test.
No, I actually wonder what
That was, I have no idea.
But I mean, I'm
honestly.
guessing you probably got like quite a lot in one day, sort of thing.
To be honest, no, that's the funny thing. So in the end, right, respectively, we can say that the whole turnaround of the project was 6 days, not even a week. Because eventually, when Badger brought up the fact that it's going to be Bandcamp Friday, we were like, okay, no matter what this release will end up being, 5 tunes, 20 tunes, 136 tunes, we're getting it out on that day.
It has to just
Yeah, for that 50%, 15% would make a huge difference. So we've decided we just, gonna cut it at that point, and whatever it is, that's what it ends up being, and that's going to be the thing. So at that point, we already have me, Riz. I talk to you, Riz, head up everyone, talk to the Divided crew and everyone. I also got my friend Bahdan involved because I know that he's also like just crazy about DnB, especially all the, cutting edge. What Neuro used to be, but now we have what Imanu and all those other guys pushed into drum and bass and influenced everyone. So like guys like Secular and Billin and whoever, he knew all of those guys personally because he's a funny guy. I love him to bits. He's just so unapologetically straightforward and sincere that he managed to befriend half of his favorite producers by just being just going for a breakthrough every time, like with a language barrier a bit as well. Like he always, when he writes in English, he sounds so straightforward that you cannot really say no to him in a way. Yeah, he also does designs and just a huge fan of drum and bass from Kyiv as well. So I was like, can you? So this is the idea. Can you also start messaging everyone that you know? So that's how we got Billin and Red Pill and he got so many people on board as well.
What country is he from?
Ukraine as well.
He's Ukrainian.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
okay,
A guy
yeah.
from Ukraine. Uno is from Russia.
This
But
is what, yeah.
yeah, but we've been friends for ages. We had this little group chat where we would talk DnB, but eventually just talk everything.
See, that's quite. There's something quite poignant. The fact that you've done a whole Ukrainian album and you actually had a Russian.
That was,
Design
to be
the-
honest,
design
internal discussions about that have been very hard because at that point I was understanding this was for Ukraine, and at that point, just the sheer mentioning of Russia or Russian people, even if there are good ones, it was just such a,
thing.
became such a sensitive thing. I was, even though Uno was ready to jump on it, and it was me who suggested that, but then I was like, should we actually have Russians in the thing? Not because I think Russians are bad, even though with time even that changed. But again, not about everyone. But so many people are basically complicit in this whole war, or just are silent about it. Not because they're scared, but because some of them there was this questionnaire in a poll in Russia, do you still even follow the war? And there was a huge percentage of the population that was like, no.
Yeah.
Not anymore, really, and that is quite true in Russia. So in Estonia, I was at pretty much a city on the Russian border where many people are Russian or speak Russian, and I was like, I'd be going around, and without wanting it or not, I would overhear conversations, and zero mentions of what's going on.
Yeah.
For me, it was very hard because in Ukraine, you cannot. That's basically the main topic. The only thing that actually exists is the war. Want it or not, you talk about it 24/7, and then you see those people who are a part of that conflict, who are on the side of the oppressor, who's killing, raping, and doing the worst of things, and they just live their own lives. And that was so.
I do think. I mean, my personal opinion is that I think that you made the right call to to have involvement from.
It was a hard one to do. It was, first of all, I was like, with tracks, not so much. Even though, for example, we have Bob and we have him on a compilation with an amazing VIP of Space to Breathe, which was, I'm so happy that actually made it to people via this compilation, because that is such a banger. And I'm so happy that it's actually out, because he looked like he probably might have not released it otherwise.
Right.
So, and he always had a very proactive anti-Putin, pro-Ukrainian position, and like he's vegan and he's pro-LGBTQ. He always stood up for the right things very vocally, and he was like, for me, he was that example of someone in Russia who. That's the thing. Usually, when you start discussing this Ukrainian situation with Russia, they would be like, "Yeah, war is bad. You know, we shouldn't have attacked Ukraine." Blah blah blah. But the deeper you get, somewhere it just,
Right.
at some point, it's you see that you are from two very different worlds, and they not necessarily your enemies, but also not quite friends, because of the atmosphere they're in. Sadly, a lot of this Russian imperialism and a lot of what's happening, it's in the culture, it's in the books, it's in education. Even if you don't want that to be a part of you, sadly, it's all around you, unavoidable in a way. Even if you like at some point wake up and like realize what's what, some of it would have made into you, so you would believe some myths about Ukraine that are not true and stuff like that. So at one point I was like, I think I don't want to have Russians on the compilations, because I think of people in Ukraine who would see this release and they would not be ready to come to terms with that. And even though that would be wrong on their part to, just no Russians everywhere. Just no Russians, cancel Russia and all of that. That's a whole different complicated topic, and how to because Ukrainians have a very different position from the world, because again, for us it's way more personal, because our friends, families are dying and being raped, and that really changes the whole thing, especially in consideration with Russian history. But I made that decision, and I even messaged Bob and said, listen, it was a very, and it was that lasted 2 days, maybe day 2 and 3 of the whole thing, where I was like, it was so I decided that I made that call, but then I felt, even though I had a good reason why I did that, was because I think some Ukrainians might feel betrayed because of this, and that was the beginning of the war. Still, that was the toughest period. I didn't want to betray someone who is in this same situation as me because of this. But then again, there was Bob, and I would be like, that guy at moments have done and said more than I did, even though I'm on their side. So it's like, it just, I was like, I'm not doing it. And then it hurt me so much.
Right.
Because that was such a huge inner conflict, because I do have a good reason, but then I have this guy who telling him, and he wanted to be a part of it immediately, obviously. I knew that as soon as I think of it, I'm going to go straight to him and ask him to get involved. And I was like, I just hate myself for it. It was, and then I had this, I think one of the turning points was when I got to that chat with Imanu and the rest of the crew, discussing that, and they were like, obviously they were kind of, against it. We should, isn't it all about unity? And I was like, despite what I think, I do understand that everyone who is involved, even though they're not from Ukraine, so they don't have that perspective, they want to have those who are ready to take part in it while being from Russia. So I was like, okay, fair enough. That was I stressed so much over it for the last 2 days. Everything else was happening and was coming together. And I was like, should I do? Should I not? And, and both sides had such tough but, important arguments to each side that it hurt me so much to be in between those. And, being undecided is way worse than even going with the wrong decision sometimes. Because if you've made up your mind, and you really stick to it, that's it, I'm not changing my opinion. That's way easier to process than when you're unsure. being unsure for too long just breaks your mind usually, no matter what you're talking about. Even if like you were at a shop and you're like, should I go for a banana or a kiwi smoothie? You'd be like sitting there for 10 minutes and you're already mentally suffering from not making a choice. It doesn't, in them, didn't really matter that much. No, but like you've been there for 10 minutes with analysis paralysis. That was me for sure. And then, so, you know, we made that decision along the way. And who do we have from Russia? We have Torn, we have Bob, we have Nami,
East Colors.
East Colors as well, who released a free tune because of the war, and we featured that tune. So that's not actually exclusive, but, you know, made sense to me, obviously, because he was like, I'd love to give this one because that was, you know, I already, you know, gave it out to people for free for, you know, because that was made for Ukraine. I dedicated it to Ukraine. So it's like, of course we want to have it. Did we have... Not sure if we had anyone else from Russia, but we then, you know, a Russian designer. And then, you know, the whole art part of the project also came in, but we'll come to that. So those were the ones. And then a big player in the whole thing was also Piotr Allegria, a guy from Poland who is as headsy as people in this genre get. He's a promoter in Poland, responsible for a Drum Obsession crew who have done some outstanding events with lineups that, you know, are hard to achieve because you need to be deeply in touch with people that you love to get them to play those gigs that they don't play anywhere else. He's very much that guy, so he's into autonomic, halftime, all of that stuff. And I knew about him for a while, and I was always, in a way, looking up to him because I saw how he was involved in his little corner of drum and bass, and everyone knew him, and he was so knowledgeable. And I'm slightly competitive about it. So when I saw someone who's like, I see that he knows his shit even better than I do, I was like, I like that guy. Like, that guy is sick. Yeah. So I was always looking for sort of like when Doc Scott started doing his COVID streams, and the first like couple of weeks of those, I would be always tuning in and trying to ID average tune, even though Doc Scott loves himself for playing, you know, the most exclusive stuff always. He has access to all of it. And I would be there being very competitive about telling it. So that got me a bit of a rep. Someone said like, oh, I want to interview you at Outlook. How do you know all these tunes? They like, you know, they're coming straight from the USB and stuff. And Piotr was there doing the same and, you know, calling the tunes that I didn't know. I was like, oh, finally we're like him the same. I was always looking for an excuse to get to know the guy. We actually exchanged a few messages before him saying like, I always miss your announcements of gigs in Poland because I'm from Ukraine, but like when you're doing something, just please message me because I really want to come to one of your guys' events. And he was like, I know that he has, you know, access to the headseer part of the scene. And I was like, he would definitely be up for this project. So I hit him up. Just we didn't talk that much before that, but we already definitely had mutual respect for each other. So that made me sure that despite us not knowing that much about each other, he would definitely be on board with this. Got him in, he got, you know, he's responsible for so much diversity in the compilation because he brought in people who are doing 140 stuff, halftime stuff. He's got so many good producers on board as well. So, and then I also got John involved, who is a guy from Germany, a very dear friend of mine who I still haven't met in real life, but I got to know him via the r/DnB Discord. Okay. And the thing is, throughout the work on the compilation, all this time I had horrendous internet. Because the connections were there, but because of the amount of traffic and because of some of the infrastructure actually being damaged, the internet would disappear at times. But in general, it was very slow. The funny thing is that I haven't heard a good 90% of the compilation when we released it.
Right.
I would maybe would have when I was very lucky, I would click through some of the tunes to at least get a glimpse of what it is like, especially like the ones on Dropbox who have preview listening. But in general, I saw all the names. Like, you know, the compilation has some of my most favorite artists of, you know, all time. When we even got Kaliba on board, which was for me, obviously,
Amazing.
incredibly special. Like, just literally made me fucking tear up because we also ended up exchanging a few messages with the manager because you know Calibra directly doesn't really doesn't really do even emails. So but then the manager seems to have realized that I'm actually in Ukraine as I'm doing this. So he told that to Dom and passed a couple of messages from him, which made me fucking cry like a bitch because he expressed how, and I know that he is a very like sentimental and sensitive person, and he told how deeply how he was just he was dying over this. And for me that was, even if he didn't tell me, I know that because I know how he's like from the interviews. But for him to say it and express the words of support, even though he couldn't get an unreleased tune in time, he said like, you can pick anything from the back catalog and we are happy to give you whatever tune that you choose. I choose You Could Dance because that hasn't actually been released digitally. They only in 2020 they remastered it and put it up on Bandcamp. So I think many people haven't really heard that tune because for such a long time it was a vinyl exclusive. I was like, and it's a tune that I have mixed for thousands of times, means a lot to me, and it's a bit of a Caliber hidden gem. So I was like, I want to have that one. And that was like when they said make a decision. I was like, from Caliber's disco, are you like kidding me? I have literally hundreds of tunes by the guy. You want me to pick a favorite? But I picked that one, and I mean, and the hardest, I can't say that was like the hardest period of my life. I'm very privileged in this war in terms of I haven't lost anything. I haven't seen a lot of it, even though I was there. Still a very, the worst of the times to have that meant the fucking world to me. Like, still is. Like, as much as I would remember fucking Putin's face as he announced that, this whole compilation, the whole process of it, all the messages that I've got, working with, this team that we've had with John, Piotr, Bohdan, Uno, myself, and my girlfriend who has helped a lot as well. Because she was always around, and I was like, she's a designer, so like, do you want to go and find Ukrainian designers? Because we decided that we can make it. That was, I think, Uno's idea that like maybe we should, have a whole artwork dimension to it where we would get people involved with their artworks, and maybe then we can use it to make up an artwork. So that's kind of how it is. So my girlfriend got some Ukrainian artist that she knows on board for that, and she was helping a lot. So, and for me it was obviously very special to have her involved, even though she's not a huge fan of drum and bass, so it's very annoying for her to be with me at times, but here she was.
Even still after this whole compilation?
A
little bit more.
Well,
maybe.
she did. She now had her very big impact into the whole thing. So whether she likes it or not, she cannot say that she's not involved with drum and bass.
Yeah. She's left her mark.
But yeah, and that was kind of the core team that we had. So my girlfriend, Riz, who was, talking to the labels and the higher ups, who was on the designer part and helped us got a lot of artists involved. Piotr, who was, got us so many headsy artists and that corner of the scene and responsible for so much diversity. All this crew, and Jan, who, like I've said, the internet was garbage. I couldn't even listen to the tunes, but you had to actually put the release together. I was like talking to him saying, listen, like I cannot put this release together, so I need you to help us with all the operational bits, making an
John,
account.
as in, which John is this? Sorry,
what?
Well, you said John.
John.
Is it
John?
Jean?
John, with the guy from Germany.
Oh, right, yeah.
So It's like, I will really need your help to help do all the operational stuff, registering the Bandcamp page, listening through the tunes and telling me whether they are good or not, because I like he in a way reminds me of myself, but like 5 years ago. So he's going through quite a similar journey that I did with drum and bass. So it's a very fun relationship because of that, because I see him getting really involved and having a taste of his own. So like, I'll trust you enough, because in some cases producers would send 3-4 tunes and saying,
Pick one.
pick
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
And be like, that would be up to you. I trust you enough, so you will be the selector in this one.
Okay.
And he was downloading all of them, had to, because many of those
My God,
have
that
been
is a
lost
process.
projects. So MP3s. And that is like 6+ something gigs of content in the end. There was no way in Ukraine I would work with that, even if like Starlink
Download
didn't make it yet.
1 week. It's
Yeah. So that was funny. I haven't heard much of this compilation at all. Like, only a good couple of tunes, and so that was a cat in a box in a way for me. And I wouldn't listen to it. Also, I couldn't listen to music whatsoever.
right. It just needed
Just felt wrong. Like, just
straight. That's odd.
unexplainable psychological block on it. You're like, I can't. For me, I like every week I would be listening to new releases, or just music is my thing in general, and there was I unable to even think of listening to it, realizing that was like, that's someone stole such an important piece of your life from you. You can't do the thing that you love so much, listening to music. And that was, everyone I knew had that. And it lasted for different periods for everyone. So I listened to the full thing maybe like 2 weeks after that. And now imagine me like, that went into the world, everyone's losing their marbles over it. It's in, something so incredible, huge.
I mean, this really went, global. Yeah. Completely.
We saw that another compilation of technos, like Scandinavian techno artists, have gathered in 24 hours, something like 5K. So I was seeing how many tunes we have and how big are the names. I was like trying to extrapolate, seeing that we will probably, gather like 10, 20K, which was
That was your
bad.
target. So that was your target. Really.
Not sort of target, but a prediction. Even though if I think about it now, that was a bad prediction. It definitely
Yeah, a little
was
bit
looking like it's gonna get more than that. But which funny thing, I'm so bad at this as well, at managing this now. We still haven't posted the 100K milestone, but that's because I'm also waiting for the money from hospital to reach both charities, so that I'm going to do an update on us reaching 100K, which hasn't been officially announced, but that happened a while ago now.
How much have you actually raised now?
I haven't looked it up, but it's already, I think, like most people who would have bought it, I think bought it at this point. So it would maybe sell like for 50 or £100 a day on a not really, don't think even that. So it's 100 something, 105, 106K probably.
Amazing, just incredible.
That
is, you can't. Yeah, again, you didn't see that coming. I mean,
I mean, even having that many tunes. Oh, it was so how it was progressing. The whole decision making on whether we have Russian acts or not. The first few days have been rather chill. We had another huge project at my work afterwards. That was very much felt like the same process.
Yeah,
but like expanded in 100 times with so many people and what whatsoever, but followed absolutely the same pattern of how it came to be. Because on first and second day, I think we only had a couple of tunes. We obviously expected many more to step up, but had no idea
what was about to happen.
Yeah, absolutely no idea. Okay, it was day 3 and 4 and stuff started going down, and we were like sitting at 30, 50 tunes, and I was like,
Holy moly!
I could not. I didn't really even couldn't comprehend it. Like I was also so stuck with doing all of it that I didn't even have time to actually process the fact that it is happening. There was no.
There was no time.
Because the huge Google table, we were so afraid that we're actually gonna just lose a tune somewhere, like just not release one of the tunes for some reason, or like really fuck something
More worried
up.
about that stuff than
Yeah, just because it was completely getting out of hand. I was lucky that I had Jan and I had everyone else involved because, you know, these kinds of if it was a proper release, that would have taken so much more people and so much more time. The fact that we got there in 6 days.
I mean, that has never been done.
Completely just unimaginable. I mean, it's so big and so bigger than me that I mean, obviously I do take credit for what I've done, but never fully. I cannot just, it's so big, it's so much bigger than me. It's such a testament to what this community stands for. It's for a guy who spent loving this community and genre, like that's also the thing. I was doing blogging, I was doing this and that, and got to know many people because everything I was doing was always mostly like for free, and I was dedicating so much time during my student years when Friction was still on BBC. I would wake up, rip it from using a very dodgy looking software that rips MP3s of BBC radio streams.
Okay.
Maybe
don't tell everyone that.
He
doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't do that anymore.
That's gonna get me into trouble probably. I think the Queen can forgive me. I mean, it's been a long time ago, but I would do that, and then I would like do a mix card of every single tune that's exclusive. Anything that didn't come out, I would make a mix card of that. I would listen to the whole thing, but also like skipping it too, because the playlist thing they have in BBC is absolutely horrendous. It's automatic. It's automatic, so it
doesn't
it
quite
really
get it at
mixes
the right
things
time
up.
and all
Often
that stuff.
skips full on tunes or would put something
Yeah.
wrong there. So I would spend the time to write the track list
right
by
name.
hand, 3 hours of content, do a mix card of all of that. And we had this blog, Displays Audio, back then. Even before that, I did that on VK. I would write a track list. I would like write a description to it, do a mix cut of all of that, upload it onto the website, do all of that, spend like, 2-3 hours before I go to uni every week. And that is just one of the examples. I dedicated my heart and my soul to this genre, not to get something in return. I perceived it as it wasn't a one-way relationship, but I always didn't care about what it will give back to me. For me, it was important to give to it. So and then it gave it so much of my life I owe to the love for this music and to this community. And now this project as well, which is, probably one of the most important and biggest things that I've done in my life. I owe it to the community. That wasn't me. That was me just,
You had the spark, had the idea.
yeah, and I felt that it would pick up. Because I know the community, and I was like, I know that the
People will
drum
be
and
up
bass
for that.
community will get behind this. Wouldn't have imagined that it would be to this point. Like, this is, it's... you wouldn't make a usual release like that, but you can't imagine that happening, but that would take ages. But like in 6 days, And the thing is, as soon as it released, and it was a good thing. I don't remember who suggested doing like an open call as well, and I did that on my Insta so that the producers that have already been involved could repost it, because they were like that would be an easy way of getting people involved. And then again, there were so many, producers that are lesser known who wanted to take a part in it, but we just, we tried to keep it very concentrated because it was already 136 tunes with very well-known names. So if I accepted everything that was sent to me, that would
be 1,000.
I mean, truly,
on
and
the
it's that sometimes happen at my work. I didn't reply to those people because explaining to them why I cannot take their tune would feel off to me. So I think I was better off not saying anything to them. And to be honest, I didn't have
no time. I mean,
even
look,
though
you
I
just, like, come on.
when in the last stages of preparation to the festival, my email is just a mess. I would wake up, sit behind my computer, and 2 a.m. I'm going to bed, never have leaving the chair because there is so much involved.
Don't you
in
worry,
doing the
I
big
know
festival.
about people contacting you a lot.
and then with this, it was maybe even much more so. I was also like
Messages, part length.
a couple times I would literally just scroll through everything because I was like, I definitely lost something for a day or two, or completely something maybe very important. It was impossible to even keep up with it. I just, I owe it to everyone that we actually managed. The funniest thing, the funny, crazy, I don't know how to put it, happened. I lost track of time.
Okay.
So I didn't realize what day of the week it was.
Uh-oh.
So on Thursday, and that was also the Wednesday night before the release of Bandcamp Friday. So Friday is the release day. It's Wednesday. My mom heard from someone that in an area that's like 40 kilometers from us, things are getting really bad. So she was like in an absolute panic, like, gather your stuff, we're moving to our grandma, which lives very close by, but she's just in such a area that you cannot even like get there randomly. It's just impossible. Like even a rocket would probably shy away from landing there, even though it's close to the border and stuff, but it's just such a rural area and the very deep end corner of it. So you had to run down. I was like, is there internet? Is her internet all right? I
can't just leave now.
Yeah, I was I was recording like in a complete hurry. I was like to Jan, and this and if I don't come back online in 1 and 2 hours, know that I am my grandma's and I couldn't
just do it.
Just like you do this and this and this, and like hopefully I can. I was so worried. That's like because that was already on the. Because also I thought that it was already Thursday. So I thought that the next day is the release day. Luckily at my grandma's, which is Ghost Show, like internet in Ukraine is very cheap and stupidly accessible. Like
what, even there? So
even my grandma in a desolate rural area has 100 gigabit working like a charm for less than £4 a month.
So good internet in Ukraine.
Yeah. Thanks God, because otherwise I don't know what would the result of this whole thing be. I came back online and I was like, yeah, let's keep on going. The artworks are piling up. Diana, my girlfriend, involved a lot of artists. is getting some involved. Tunes keep piling on and we barely keep it all up organized in this huge Google sheet that we had. I also had to collect all the emails so that I can actually keep everyone updated, because obviously we needed to send out the artwork to everyone, press release. We had this amazing person, Polly. It's Riz who got Polly involved. They did, send it out to Mixmag and whatever. So got us featured on so many places and helped us write the press release. So even though Paulie wasn't like really involved in the main part, shout outs to Paulie for really like picking things up on the PR side of things. I think it had a big did a big thing. So got many more people to see it, especially on that very first day, which was the most important one because of Bandcamp Friday. And so Thursday comes. I'm sleeping at my grandma's, and I'm waking up, and I'm like, okay, we need to drop as well as soon as possible to get those sales in and use Bandcamp Friday to its fullest. We're looking at like 100 tunes already. I'm like, okay, guys, we're gonna crunch. I woke up earlier, went to bed really like deep at night, woke up really early. I'm like, guys, are you ready? Like, wake up earlier. We're gonna like stick to it, and it's the final, it's the final part of the course. And the funny thing is that I was like so straightforward, it's so on point. I was like, no one actually mentioned, like, no one questioned why I was forcing everyone to do everything on Thursday. Even though we're dropping on Friday, they thought that, okay, maybe he wants to wrap everything up and do like the PR stuff so that we like prepare everything and we don't take submissions till this and that. I literally thought we are releasing in an hour, and then John just said something. Jan, fucking hell, sorry, absolutely murdering it here. He just sent a message like mentioning something. Oh, I do remember you. That made me look at the check on the day.
Look at the date.
I look on it, and it was rather inconsequential, but I've never felt as dumb as I did in that moment. I was like, how did I actually? And that was. So I was lost for at least 2-3 days and like shifted one day. Yeah. Wow. So every day I would be thinking like that day I had, and then
I think you can be forgiven. You had a lot.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like I've said, it was inconsequential. It actually, helped us mobilize at that point so that we have, crunched.
Completely ready.
Crunched some stuff in so we could, focus on the rest, getting the tunes in, and we were getting them. We had stuff sent to us on the release day in the morning. We obviously, so publicly, we were saying that,
it's coming.
Dropping up early, and we were actually hoping to have a cut-off moment, but then we realized with how many people, Black Sun Empire and Nympho actually went to the studio to make a collaboration for this project. So so it was 6 days. They maybe got involved on day 2 or 3, and it was Nympho who was in touch, and he was like, "No, we're gonna actually pop up by the BSE studio, and we're gonna like make a collab just for this."
Amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah, one of the there is so much that is like untold stories behind this. People renaming tunes to suit the theme in a way. So Halogenics' tune is Odessa, which is a city in Ukraine. And he actually told me that, well, his grandma was from Odessa, so hence the name. I just like, I completely didn't know that. I was like, funny that he was my first choice of who to book. And then Halogenics as well. Obviously was a very special thing for me because that first gig was supposed to be with him. He's one of my absolute all-time favorites, and he's always been vocal about many things. So, he instantly got into the project day one, said, I'm going to send a tune, sent it, got Particle involved, Quartz, so many other people giving us help, contacts, everything he could. Said that he's going to do his absolutely stunner of a t-shirt, that he's going to be, raising money for Ukraine via the t-shirts. We have 3 Halogenics tunes on the album. So a collaboration with Monty, a collaboration with Workforce, and his tune Odessa, which is also, just going to mention, is the top selling tune because when you buy separately, Odessa was the one that was the most purchased.
Right.
It is an exceptional tune though, and is given like the whole context of this, I'm now going to be it is now a very special tune. What I was thinking of as well is like, this has the name together with Ukraine in the tags in the album. when people are going to be playing out those tunes, it's not on streaming, so that there is that side to that. So if you have to be a little bit more dedicated to actually to listen to this stuff, which is maybe a good thing. But if you're playing it, you see the artwork, you see the album name, and it will keep reminding you of what this whole thing was all about. And to say, and I imagine myself like in 2 years playing a gig somewhere, and obviously I will be playing some of those tunes to death because now they mean the world to me. And to think that I was involved in that, and to think that this is, those tunes have been given for the Ukrainian cause, that is also a very special part to it. Like it was very much about that very moment. We needed the money. Everyone was raising money as much as we can. Also, the important thing to understand, prices are rather low in Ukraine, and the exchange rate between the pound and the hryvnia, Ukrainian national currency, is on the higher end. So 100,000 pounds is a bit more than 4 million hryvnia, and
That really
you
goes a long
can
way.
do so much with that money. Like, people hear the 100k pounds number and they're like, that's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
But you actually have to multiply it by like 3-4 times, as in how you would imagine what it would do in the UK. In Ukraine, it would do 3-4 times as much. That is 3-4 times as much help. So, wow.
That's really good to know as well, I think, for a lot of people.
That money. And so we would get in touch with the Ukrainian Red Cross Society, and it was, I think, a guy called Yaroslav who was responsible. So we were like, we're planning to do this and we want to send the money to you. Like, we want to double check how do we do the transfer so that everything is done correctly. And he would reply. And then, when the compilation released, a very sad thing happened as well. Again, was inconsequential, so that's very good. But we were waiting. We wanted to obviously send the first batch of money as soon as possible. And it was not. So how it does work is that you connect to your PayPal, and the sales just slowly start dripping in, after some time has elapsed. So instead of getting a whole bunch of like 40,000 pounds at once, you will be like getting them eventually as the sales follow, with maybe like a 2-day delay or something. But the money were not coming in, and we were like, fuck, what's going on?
Oh, no.
We messaged Bandcamp, and they said, and we already talked to them before because we were asking, if we don't do Bandcamp Friday, can you somehow, lift this thing, or just at least, feature the thing, which they did eventually do as well. And we messaged him like, listen, like something is off, and he was like, the system has flagged you as,
Dodgy account.
Dodgy as hell.
So
The
much
thing
money
is,
going
it looks
in.
like this was, even in Bandcamp, which is, goes far beyond electronic music as well, and is, such a huge platform. We were stuck as the number one top selling release across all genres. I stopped keeping count at some point, but it was
Just
definitely
still
2 weeks plus
Right.
that it would be the top selling one. So obviously, as soon as a enormously amount of money was collecting that, the system automatically flagged it as something for the checking. So we messaged the guy and he said, we're going to sort this out ASAP. So it didn't really delay the first portion of the money in the end that much, which is good to know. But yeah, and that was it. And it is important to say that, even though I was doing it, for the good of Ukraine, and also I think like everyone benefited from this existing, even if you don't give a fuck about Ukraine. We were trying to think very smartly about the pricing. So we're like, how should we do this? We understood that we want this to be a good product completely. Like, if you skip the message, if you fucking hate Ukraine, it still has to be a good deal. Which I think 136 tunes for £12 is most people, because like we were like
Was
maybe
that how much you sold it for in the end? Was it £12?
£12 for the whole thing. We wanted it to be
Wow.
an undeniably good deal, so that you know.
I mean, I wouldn't even. I mean, there's probably some mathematicians out there. I mean, I couldn't do that. I mean, like, how much does that work out like per track?
A tune, a very small amount, yeah. They're not gonna
10p,
do
mate, I
much.
don't know,
Basically,
very
almost, yeah. So
5p.
we wanted to be an ideal one cannot miss, because we didn't want it to, you know, gatekeep anyone out of purchasing it. And even if you're purchasing it for all the wrong reasons, you would still do it just because it's such a good product and such a good deal. So we've landed on that. I think the thing is, the average purchase price is it somewhere like 15.
Right.
And I saw a lot of people, I would maybe saw the number 15 more often than 12. And we were like, we uncapped the thing, because we were like, we know that there are a lot of people who, as soon as they see what is this for,
they want to give more.
They would donate more. So like, that is the important
I mean, they'd be
part.
like, I can't buy this for £12. I need to give you more money.
Exactly.
Like,
And no, people did for 100, for 200. Someone did 500.
Really?
So,
Really?
you know, so many. And a lot of the obviously producers who were on it also then came in and dropped a good 100 or 200 or at least 50p on the whole thing. So, and yeah, but so there were two sides to it. So the people who really care, there was an opportunity for them to pay more, and we, you know, trusted them that if you think this is worth more and if you care, this is just a way of donating as well. It's not, for those who care, it's not a product, it's a cause. So it could have been £1, they would have still bought it for 100.
Yeah.
Because they see where it goes. And then on the other side, and I mean, fair enough, those people exist, and that's completely fine. If you really just wanted the tunes and you didn't really care about the cause, so you wouldn't donate.
I want some halogenic stubs.
Yeah. Basically, we set a price that it, like, even if you don't have that much money, even if you don't care at all, you're getting 136 exceptional tunes from some of the scene's finest, alongside, I think I was very happy that we had producers that are not quite as well known, but had absolutely wonderful tunes on board. So I think in a way we also managed to maybe open some cool, lesser known producers to people by having them on the thing. So I was very happy about that. That has to always happen more in the industry. You could not basically, you know, avoid buying it. Even if you hate Ukraine, you would buy it just because it's, you know, you would then go and like delete the tags and delete the cover, but you would still buy the
Change the
thing.
track titles.
Because it was that good, and then we were like, but we also want to sort of make a single tune expensive enough to, if people only want 2 or 3 tunes, and they are in it for the tunes.
How much are you doing a tune
Two per tune.
for?
So you had to pay £2 per tune, or you can pay, you know, 12
£12 for all of
and
them.
get the whole thing. That was very deliberate as well.
Yeah,
Like, if you literally just want a single tune, at least you will give £2, and that's money as well, especially in Ukraine again. But if you like at least 4 tunes, the jump from that to getting 136 is so easy that you... So yeah, we try to, you know, be smart with the pricing to get the most money that we can. That was...
I mean, man, honestly, it's such an incredible story and such an amazing thing to do. Obviously, I can't get my head around it. I'm sure you still can't, to have done that.
In a way, like, just like with this war, you never will. But for me, this is just a very much a demonstration of, you know, the global thing. That's what people can do.
Bringing people together.
That's what we are capable of. You know, this
right
happened while I was having the worst time in my life. And, you know, and again, thanks to our military for, you know, being so amazing that we could keep on with our lives, that I could sit during an invasion for a couple of days with internet and do this and help. that is a huge privilege. And sadly, I think during many other wars, because it was not as much on TV, because people did not care as much, because those people were in worse conditions, even maybe if they wanted to, they could not do that. I really am very conscious of the fact that I was in a position where I can do it. So it was the most natural thing to do. It's everyone in Ukraine has, okay, most people have survivor bias. And it penetrates people on every level. So you would have people on the front line who have just lost, their dearest friend who was just killed as they were fighting. And that person would think, how the fuck am I alive? And why? Why is he dead? And why am I alive? And then as you go, to people who were suffering from it, it's at every corner. For me, it was like, I'm not, obviously I can't hold a rifle, but I'm not holding one. And I'm like,
what can I do?
yeah, that's the thing.
Maybe that's what you inspired and captured by doing it, because I think a lot of people were like, what can I do? How can I get involved? What can
that
I
was the
do
informational part of it was very important. This was the good part is money was very important, but then again, we had billions coming in, so in that way it's just a small bit. Doesn't make it any less important or amazing, but what I'm leading into is that it was always a twofold purpose. The first one was obviously raising money, which is amazing, but I was stressing that in press releases, in the release description, in the mail outs I've been doing, that it's important to get the message across. It's important to get people to care. It has to be out, and that it worked. That's what happened. It's 2 months and people still care. And even though some stopped caring, the people that we needed to care still do that. So we are still fucking alive thanks to that. The informational part of this war has been absolutely crucial. So what I wanted to happen is that if you listen to DnB, there is no way for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks that you can avoid this release and then avoid seeing Ukraine and the cause. When we were talking to all the promo channels who were obviously super happy to feature this, UKF, Subantics, all the other ones, Liquidity, so many of them, Drum and Bass Arena, when they were saying, well, we just have completely full schedules, I was like, that's actually, good. If you post this tune 4 weeks away from now, that serves again as a reminder. I wanted this to have a very long shelf life,
long-lasting,
so that you will have, that cover art pop up even in a month, as someone who didn't have, the producer who took part didn't have time to post it and comes back to it in a month and he does, or there's a tune feature happening on a promo channel 2 months away from it. The main thing was just keep it in the public eye. Like I've said, that
you've done it, man.
Largely that has worked out for Ukraine in general. I just did that for drum and bass, and I think that that's the important part. That was my thing. I used my skills and my passion to direct the attention and the time and everything towards what I know, because that was my thing. And drum and bass is a very niche thing, and it's a niche community, and a lot of the other stuff that was happening informationally might have not got to those people. So here I was.
And I mean, I think it's testament to drum and bass as well, in terms of being able to mobilize that quickly, being able to come together in such a way, because there were a few other things, similar projects, but not one that raised this much.
You're very much about boasting how cool drum and bass is, this project is very much proof of that. For all the fighting and whatever shenanigans we might have going, in the end, when it really is important and needed, the drum and bass community can make something absolutely exceptional. and incredible. And this project is now in history. It has happened. It's not gonna go anywhere. And it will serve as a living proof that when it really is needed, when it really is important, this community, for all its good or all its bad, can come together, make this happen, make an actual real difference in the real world. We can get pretty dismissive about things, and in the end, drum and bass is just a genre of music. It's just a hobby, and people have other hobbies, but no, it goes deeper than that. There is a lot of passion in it, and it truly shines when it really has to. So
Okay, you get me all emotional now. I want to start. I want to start clapping or something.
and I know it's for myself as well. Like I was saying, I was like listening to the genre. I now listen to drum and bass more in my life than I did not in terms of my age. So the bigger half of my life is the time when I was listening to the genre, and this just validated it. It was like it was worth it. It was worth to put so much years and so many hours of doing this or that, of engaging with this community without having any end goals or trying to make a career out of it. So, because I'm not a producer or not, where still very much didn't happen as a promoter, but it will. I mean, I really hope that I can bring a lot of the people who have contributed to bring them to Ukraine. I will fucking spend my own money on that to just get them, and hopefully we can, when Ukraine is rebuilding, we can do some gigs that will be collecting money for that. Given how this has worked, I mean, we did the event with the hospital, and that I think what I was told, so half of that will go again to the Ukrainian Red Cross Society, and half will go to Music Saves UA, which is an amazing fund that I'm personally involved with. Maybe we'll tell about it a little bit later, but they have collected through the event, I think, 8,600 or something, which is an amazing result because it was on the Eastern weekend. And that again, was
not done very
incredibly competitive. It was like we were struggling a bit to put the lineup together.
So many people booked here and there.
Yeah. I mean, so many people were like, I wish I could.
Well, I couldn't make it. I wanted to go.
People hated the fact they could not either go or participate in it. But in the end, and that's the best thing, about the event that I've heard. And I was trying my best to make it that. So I was already working on my visa and my permit, but it was, I accepted it. It was looking very unlikely.
Must have been a bit hard in a way.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the fact that it happened was the most important thing. And what I've heard from people is that said that the crowd was amazing. Like this was a very united, positive, none of the dodgy people. So because I think some of the people, like even if you like the lineup, but you're hating on politics or Ukraine or whatever, you would not go. So I think that's what like, and Piotr was there, and it was my chance to give him, he was like, I'd love to go and play. I was like, holy shit, you have to come and play. Like, this is going to be your first London gig. Even though he didn't have all that many people because he played in the beginning, he was super happy. I was like, I'm not going to be there. You have to be there, though.
You're going to represent.
You're going to be, my eyes, like, in that way. And everyone said that the crowd at the event was absolutely amazing. And to me, that is, even though we were raising money, to me, that was so much more important than we had 1 million people. Yeah. It was who those people were. And
what you were doing it for.
I know, yeah. And I know that, from that experience, some of those people cared even more or did something else to help. So, that was...
It's all worth it.
I was so happy to hear that, especially about it, that it ended up being...
say a big up to Hospital, and it was...
Hospital, Undivide, Weird Science, and Studio 338 for, saying we're ready. So massive props to all of them. And not only was it an amazing event that, generated even more awareness, but it was also, quite a good sum of money. So it's like an complete success
bit
on all
helps.
fronts. There was also a gig in Bristol that was by The Blast
Okay, yeah.
with quite a good lineup as well. They already had it around and they were like, we would love to, make it a Ukrainian fundraiser. So they did that. I don't know how much they did collect yet, but I know.
Was that a Thekla?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 2nd of May, I believe.
Yeah, that
So
was really recent. Yeah.
They did the same
Was that
thing.
together with Ukraine? Was it similar? Was it the same branding, or it was something a bit different?
It was basically their thing, but they were mentioning together with Ukraine there, and they were donating to the same. So you're looking how long it took.
I am looking at how long do you think we've
Which
been
hour
going?
is it?
How long do you think we've been going? We have been going, coming up to 3 hours.
Fair enough.
I know that's.
know.
I thought this was gonna be. I thought this was gonna be a good one.
That's the least.
No, look, honestly, man, this is all. I honestly, thank you so much for coming and doing this. Not say that we have to be totally done yet. I want to still what I want to actually ask you is kind of what you've kind of got planned next, and because obviously you're saying now, obviously, it's opened up this new role for you, actually being a representative and that kind of thing. And what you sort of are planning next, I guess.
So, for myself and at my work, so I had to we were trying to think, because on the day that this has been released, we had so many people who wanted to contribute, but they would have to write the tune, or people who were like, God damn it, I didn't know of this. And, we tried our best to, spread it, but 6 days and then again, the first 2 days have been very much like building the framework and stuff. They're like, I would have given a tune, like, are you planning a sequel? And we were thinking, like, at some point, even Hospital were saying we would maybe like to try and turn it into a proper release so it's on streamings, but that couldn't sadly happen. But people wanted, if we released it a week later, probably would be easily at like 200 something while keeping the same level of quality, which is, because of Bandcamp Friday, we had to call it a day. And we've been, trying to push it out promo wise as much as we can. But then I had a call from my team at the festival, and they were like, we're planning this huge project, and we have got a place in Lviv where we can live and work. And, it's a bit dodgy where you are at, so it would also be cool for you to be, in Lviv because it's a bit safer. And I think it's maybe like week 2 of the war, I have moved to Lviv, and that was a funny place to be, because it ended up being like a dorm, a co-working, an office, everything at the same time. Everyone came in with their own mattress, and we were like sleeping on mattresses and working. What we did was called Save Ukraine, and that was an international TV marathon. That the thing itself took place in a studio in Poland. So we found a broadcaster, TVP in Poland, who would use their studio and who would use their powers to broadcast it. And then we would arrange broadcasting across the entire world. And that would be a two-hour show where we had international artists performing, Ukrainian artists performing. We also organized fan zones across the world where people would watch the thing live together as they would a football match to, unite them, and it actually kind of turning into a meeting because everyone would be with Ukrainian flags and stuff. Well edited, raw videos about the reality of war as well. So about refugees, about the army, about how the whole thing began. So that was basically our festival's idea. One of the sponsors we work with approached us and said, we have some money, like, do you want to find a way to do something cool with it? And we were like, we can do, because we can't do any events even. I mean, we probably won't be able to do events in Ukraine for a while. People are scared of loud noises and
could
stuff.
Be targeted or something.
So that's something. So the main thing that we do is live events. can't do that, and doesn't really sound like the time where we would try and leave the country to do an event in somewhere else. Like other, I know promoters have been amazing. There's a festival in Slovakia called Pohoda that I absolutely loved, and their team did a huge concert on the main square of Slovakia in Bratislava that was on TV.
I've been Bratislava.
They arranged
Right.
all of that on the first week of the conflict. I was like, and that was a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
So we, and we started working on this, and again, we were raising money, so there was a QR code. In the end, the first marathon has been watched by more than 80 million people. That's just what we had confirmed. I mean, Al Jazeera was saying that like we had 200 million something people, but never backed it up. But we know that it was at least 80 million across 30 channels in Europe, and even like further, it was even somewhere in Korea like 2 weeks after it actually aired. So delayed broadcasts. 50 cities where fan zones were happening all over Europe, so most of the capitals and then some other cities as well. And we've raised 1.2 million euro. And that was very similar of how Together with Ukraine came to be. We did it in 2 weeks, which is not, the period that it takes to put something like that together. Ended up having like Sting, Fatboy Slim, many other artists, all the Ukrainian ones. But I think like those videos that basically we were doing this with 1+1, which is the biggest like media conglomerate in Ukraine and the biggest TV channel, because we always kind of work together with that team. They took all the footage that was there at this point and, did videos that if you watch them, you just
Really
cannot
affect
it really makes it personal. Sharp editing and, just the actual reality of it. I think those, like whoever was watching this, and that was a TV crowd across the world. I think many of those people, were tuned in for completely different programming on a Sunday night. And I think when they saw that, those who still didn't care really did start caring. I think that was one of the most important parts of that project. And then we have an Ukrainian Association of Music Events, which was created by our ex-colleague, who is actually a part of Zelensky's party, and he was responsible for youth, for nighttime events, and we created this association during COVID because the government was ignoring our industry a lot. Same thing happened everywhere. Like promoters had to go on meetings across Europe and the US to say, guys, we have suffered the most from this. Like you've unveiled the step-by-step program out of COVID and you don't even mention events, and we are the ones who are out of a job completely. And many of them have debts or whatever. So that was, horrifying time. So that was created, that association that finally gave us a chance to directly talk to the government and finally properly engage where they started caring enough. And those guys behind it, and we share at the festival a lot of the people with them, and I'm with them as well. Created this fund, Music Saves UA. It's a humanitarian, very much just a humanitarian fund, but the main difference was we are there on the ground. We have a main venue in Kiev called Atlas. It's an 1100 cap venue. That's just a go-to venue in Kiev. It's super neutral, so you can do whatever the hell you want there. All genres, electronic music or not electronic music, all looks good there. So very much a go-to place in Kiev. And, not many concerts happening there at the moment. So it was turned into a humanitarian hub, basically. So the whole place where the fan zone is, we now have like hundreds of boxes of humanitarian aid and dozens of volunteers. Some of them are staff, some of them from just volunteer organizations that have been in Kiev, all joined up, sorting through goods, hand delivering them or giving them out if someone can, come up and pick it up, giving out help. And given that it was created by the Association of Music Events, and given that it's called Music Saves UA, most of the money we are raising by collaborating with the music industry. So, the fund appeared just a couple of days after Together with Ukraine was released. So I wish we could, donate half of the money there. And I was thinking that we should update people that we will do that. But given that we had like 150 people who, I would say have a vote on what's going on with this, I thought that it was practically impossible to really, get everyone to vote and say so. I was like, okay, we're going to stick with the Ukrainian Red Cross Society. But for the hospital gig and for the amazing t-shirts that, they were consulting us on how we should treat them. So we came to a design together. Very much looking forward to going to London soon and picking that one up, because I regrettably don't have anything that screams Ukraine on me and speak, a bit of British English. So I hate the fact that nothing on me says Ukraine, because I want that to be a thing. So those t-shirts, the halogenics one in hospital, hopefully will do the job. Both amazing designs. So, halogenics ones were on pre-order, so I don't think you can get that one anymore, even though I would love him to do a second batch. I think it's exceptionally beautiful. But go get the hospital ones. They are pretty beautiful. And the money, again, goes to the Ukrainian Red Cross Society, and half of it goes to Music Saves UA. Same with the hospital event, same with the Blast event at Tekla. And that's what we've been doing. So raising money via their UK's Music Venue Trust was like, we will be doing some events and, sending the money to you. One of the crazier examples, and it's probably like the main case that we have right now, is that there is a Ukrainian band called Antitila, and they are fighting at the front. So they
damn.
Yeah, and there is also an important fund. I always forget the name. I think something like Musicians Defend Ukraine, where money is being raised for those musicians who, instead of staying at home and writing music, voluntarily came to defend the country. So they're fighting now, and Antitila were doing that, and they basically launched a sort of a flash mob. They recorded the video and were like, we want to make a collaboration with Ed Sheeran, like get it to him, make it work, basically. And military stuff, like with a helmet, very much from the front line, recording a video saying, we are this band from Ukraine, and like, Ed, let's do a thing.
Did it work? Oh,
yes.
No, really?
Yes.
That's
So Ed Sheeran just released different versions of his tune Two Step, and one of the versions is Antitilar doing a second verse in Ukrainian language, which there's also a music video that was shot in Ukraine during the war, and absolutely stunner of a video, because it, has
real footage.
Has the raw thing of it, and all of the royalties from that song and monetization from YouTube, royalties from Spotify, all of that will be going into Music Saves UA, which is, incredible. And we hope one of my things that I do is that we're doing the second TV marathon, just like the one I described. By this time, we're going to be doing it in Berlin under the Brandenburg Gate on May 29th. Hopefully this time it will actually be shown in the UK, because we couldn't get BBC involved. They said, sadly, we would love to, but cannot take a side.
Oh, really?
So hopefully we're going to, find someone who's going to be showing this in the UK as well. But there was a meeting, so we were going to say
you probably would have. I would have said Channel 4 would have probably been a better.
I think
bet, maybe.
we were in touch with them, and we did a
meeting. They seem to be.
We did meetings in London and Manchester during the first one, where people were watching it just on the screen from satellite. And so that's one of the things. And it's now going to be, a proper live production. So we're going to be building a stage under the Brandenburg Gate, which is obviously as symbolic as it gets for this. Wanted to do it on May 8th, just before all the hell that's going to be breaking loose on May 9th. But couldn't get enough funds, because that's different from making it in a studio in Poland. So you need to build the whole thing. You need to bring in the toilets, all those things.
Big logistic.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars were needed, which I think we right now did secure. So everyone's working on it, and my side is obviously trying to get international artists involved. But previous time we had pre-recorded performances and video messages. This time we can actually have someone play a song live there, and then that will be broadcasted all over the world. So that's one of my main goals right now, is to, try and find someone here who we can get, someone big.
I was going to say, I'll do it.
God, who knew it was going to be so easy? That was it.
Look back further,
I was
man. Look,
stressing out because of this so much, and just here you are, and I didn't have to lift a finger. Holy shit. And the other thing is so our festival in July is, not happening.
Probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to have a piece of our festival at, every European festival that can have us. So we're helping European summer festivals book
That's an interesting
Ukrainian acts and hopefully do some sort of fundraising for our fund. So we have already collab with some. We are doing full on a Ukrainian stage, because some artists are canceling or someone didn't have everything booked out. So they were like, we want to do a stage with you. Stuff like that. So basically, again, give Ukrainian culture a chance, give Ukrainian artists a chance to perform, because they can't do that in their main domestic market. While also, showing people what they're actually fighting for and what they are supporting. Many people who have been, with the Together with Ukraine compilation, most of those people, a lot of them did, most of them have not seen Ukraine, have never been to Ukraine, yet they contributed in such an important way. It's not like it was something super hard for them, but it in the end, it became this thing because everyone chipped in. I wish all of them can actually, come to Ukraine when it's safe and see what it's like, to understand who and how you have helped, because we are a people and a country and a culture worth fighting for. And I know that people, you don't need to be deserving of protection from an invasion, because that doesn't have to happen in the first place. But I really just hope that people then will do the due justice and come to Ukraine and see what a beautiful and amazing place and such amazing people that they were helping all along. So in a way, getting our Ukrainian artists to play outside of Ukraine right now will actually show people the culture that deserves to be its own, independent, without anyone trying to destroy it, which we've been fighting with for 300 years. Russia was doing that directly before. And after USSR, they were just the Russian cultural market, music market, film market was always overpowering Ukraine's. So all the big money is there. If you want to be a big artist that doesn't cater to the West, you have to cater to the Russian market. For that, you need to sing in Russian, you have to play Russia, and then that country was at war with us for 8 years. So many artists did not do that, and it's so much harder to break through when you have to work within, a 40 million crowd across, instead of, this big Russian world that we have that's Russian speaking. So, that those are right now two of my main goals: secure ways. So, I mean, if anyone's, if thinks of a way, you can do a gig or you can do something, or you're looking for a place to donate. Music Saves UA. The important thing is, the international companies like, World Food Kitchen and Red Cross and UNHCR and all of those, UNICEF. They're going to do their bit, but a lot of their actual protocols do not allow them to engage all that much at the front. And with Ukrainian volunteers, if you're looking for, some producer, I know Halogenics has, and I hope he doesn't mind, has been donating to so many local funds like here and that, and that's the best way to do it. It's Fortnite gathered like an insane amount of money for Ukraine, but it went to those big companies, and I think their help will come more so when it's already fine, when the war is done. So rebuilding, helping with, humanitarian needs and stuff, but they cannot really, because of their protocols, be saving lives
Was
where
in
it's needed.
taking sides or getting
It's very,
directly
yeah, they
involved
have a
in-
very complicated bureaucratic system. Some of the people working for those places, hate that because they want to, but they sadly cannot.
So that's an interesting tip there for anyone that
If you want to help Ukraine, look for very local, small, volunteer. If you're having trouble seeing if it's any good, you can message me and check with me.
Well, what I was going to say as well is I'll definitely put some links in.
Yeah.
Put some links in the description.
We'll definitely do that.
Get some places to head.
So it's in general, if you have anything that's Ukraine related, a question, an inquiry, or anything, I'm super open to that. These days, I'm obviously super busy, but eventually I'll come back with the reply.
Yeah.
Because if someone in this world wants to help Ukraine, my job and our collective job is to help them, to enable that. That's, I think, what In a Way Together with Ukraine did. It's not like I, forced everyone to do that. There was a subconscious demand for it. I just made it, conscious in a way. I said that you probably, in a way, as in you wanted to do this, but you didn't know it yet. But now I'm saying you that, it exists, so you can actually jump onto the opportunity. That's a lot of what's happening with Ukraine right now. Just we are trying to give people ways to help and engage. We hope that's going to be happening more and more. I'm absolutely delighted to be here talking to you and to whoever will make it to this point.
If anyone has made it to the end of this,
units.
you are an absolute champion.
I'm incredibly chatty, especially now that I didn't have a chance to actually vent as much in Ukraine. So I'm just running my mouth like hell here.
You told me last night, you were like, you said you were a good talker, and I have really felt the full force.
But I love to go on tangents as well. So I hope this was somewhat, whoever is listening can navigate through this. And thank you so much for spending the time to listen to it and not clicking away once it got really political. Because
I don't know whether we did it the wrong way around. We should have started, but no, at the same time,
that's how it went.
That's how it went. That's how it went.
I mean, if we can do time codes, then hopefully
that's actually good. Yeah, I should do that sort of thing. But no, honestly, man, I said I came up when I had, you said you were here, and just to have a chat, have a platform, give you an opportunity to talk, and look, hopefully, maybe we can. As I said, that I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that will be interested to hear you speak. I hope there are. The fact that obviously you've done what you've done and getting to understand a bit more behind it. And for me, it's just such a unique opportunity to speak with someone like yourself. I've wanted to do something like this for a while. So honestly, man, I really appreciate you.
I appreciate, the fact that, because I know that a lot of people want to know about a bit of the background on this project, and I'm more than happy to share it, but now that you have, actually given me an opportunity to talk about it, I appreciate that. And I'm just immensely grateful to everyone who has supported this project, who participated in it by giving their artwork or music, by, reposting it, making promo, whatever you did for Ukraine as well, apart from this project. It's hard in Ukraine right now. Our gratitude may not punch through because we have a lot going on, but you should understand that for drum and bass fans in Ukraine as well, when they saw this project, you imagine what it meant? For me, it was obviously I was behind it in many ways, so I knew. But imagine waking up during a war when your whole life is crashing to shambles, and then seeing 136. Not there are more producers because of collabs, more probably at 150
at least.
Expressing their support in such a way, giving those tunes. Some of the favorite producers. We covered all corners of the scene as well. It's incredibly diverse. We've grown to be such a wide music genre, but this kept us together. When it really matters, we all come together, and from all those corners, we still ended up all together. So
together with Ukraine.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hopefully, we're gonna be together with whoever needs it in the future. I certainly will be doing once once Ukraine is better, going to be doing my due diligence and, you know, ask for everyone. So we have a lot of shit that we need to fix in this world. And I think if you don't think music can matter and talking about politics within music doesn't matter, look at this.
And I think it's that thing of music. It transcends races and borders and can communicate to anybody. It's such a powerful thing to bring people together, and yeah, it's just such a poignant, amazing, testament. And again, that kind of hope and showing the good in humanity as well at a time when it's so bad and you can see all this horrible stuff, that to actually do something like that personally and to see it gives hope, does give hope that humanity can be
Truly
good.
does. You should understand that, like, even if you like hang a Ukrainian flag out of your window, which is maybe you've done it for yourself or you think that it's something insignificant, in Ukraine we are bombarded with absolutely horrible news every couple of minutes. You know, hearing about people being raped, people dying, buildings being destroyed, rockets landing in a random place in the country. Every little thing like that we see, it counteracts that. It's good that, you know, even if someone is tokenistic or just does it because everyone does it, that doesn't really matter in the end as long as it's out there. And when we Ukrainians see that, see the support in the most random corners of the world or at places where people gather and it's hundreds of thousands of people at demonstration, that's the only thing that, you know, in a way also keeps us going and lets us resist all the shit we have to deal with. So, you know, whatever you've done or whatever you're going to do is going to have a real impact, no matter how small that thing is. So I think that's an important thing to remember for us all, not only within this context, but in general. Doing good in the world always, you know, it pays
Moving
back.
in the right way. Moving in the right way.
Yeah. So, you know, thank you for everyone to listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure and an absolute honor. And, you know, do hit me up. If anyone has any questions.
Where can we find you on Instagram? It's B.Kind on Instagram.
B.Kind_. So that's the one.
B.Kind_.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
That would be me.
the main place. Is
Uh,
there anywhere else you'd
my
recommend?
Facebook page, you know, wherever you can find me, go into it. Someone will help. Yeah, I mean, anything you want to do to help or any questions that you have, I will be more than happy to engage to the point where I can do that. So,
Yeah.
cheers, everyone. Thank you so much for being together with Ukraine.
Together with Ukraine. There you
Yes.
go. All right, man. No, honestly, thank you. And thank you to anyone that has been listening and watching. Please go and support. Please go. What an amazing gentleman we have right here. Yeah, honestly, man.
Cheers.
That's it.
Did it.
We did it.
Oh, my God.
Only 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, together with Ukraine is longer than that.